My times, I like that used to be town one more, but
Now it's RXR.
but they wouldn't.
Nancy, who owns
It was,
Five Times Square? Who had the
No,
building?
it's, uh,
This is
Coronado,
so wrong.
Coronado, I think.
No, but there was a company in there that had. it.
Apollo Global.
Ernst and Young.
I
So that was
I don't recall.
commercial to residential office. to that.
That's not true. There have been so many.
Well, in
In.
Times Square.
Oh,
it's-
okay, yeah, if we add some, there's some boundaries to it.
Office
Do
10.
you wanna come join us on the table?
Oh, cool, that's cool.
Committee member or board members are definitely allowed.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
All right.
Okay, you are ready to go.
Okay, this is the May 19th meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5 Transportation Committee. I'm David Sigmund, Chair, joined by Samir Lavingia, Co-Chair. Any items voted on at this meeting will appear at the full CB5 board meeting on Thursday, June 12th. We have 4 items on the agenda today. We have a request from Cote Restaurant at 16 West 22nd Street for a parking regulation change to the entire block of 22nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenue to accommodate their dining out roadway cafe. And we have 3 DOT items. Madison Avenue Bus Improvement Project. DOT and MTA are proposing improvements to bus priority on Madison Avenue from 23rd Street to 42nd Street. The project aims to enhance bus speeds and reliability for 92,000 daily riders across 34 routes by extending the double bus lane south on 3rd Street. Then an update on Broadway Vision from 35th to 42nd Streets. DOT will present the latest proposal for Broadway. We had previously reviewed 38th to 40th Street. And finally, the 34th Street Busway, the second discussion we've had on that topic. DOT and MTA are proposing a busway on 34th between 3rd and 9th within the congestion pricing zone. Project aims to enhance bus speeds and reliability while improving safety for many bus riders and pedestrians in the area. So if members of the committee could identify themselves.
Nancy Gosho. Melissa Stewart.
Oh, I'm not on the committee, but I'm on the board. Charles Baker. Tristan Haas.
Paul Maxford.
Zul Zolkowitz.
David Sigmund.
And Samir,
Before we jump into the agenda, are there any members of the public or the committee who have new business they'd like to raise? We do this first, so members of the public don't have to wait through the entire agenda to raise items that are not on the current agenda.
Charles, any word down.
Yeah, we're not being dealt with.
Damu, one person raised their hand.
Okay,
Okay.
Donna, you can go ahead if this is a new item that's not on the agenda.
Hello.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
is,
good afternoon, Damu Radeshwar. I am interested in hearing about the DOT's proposal for Broadway Vision.
that'll come
from-
up later. This is only new business right now.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so what we'll do is there will be a presenter for each of the 4 items. After they walk us through, then members of the committee can ask questions or make comments. After that, we'll take comments from the public. There's no time limit on comments, but we do ask that you keep things succinct and avoid repetition. After all public comment has been received, we'll enter the committee business session where only committee members will discuss the matter with no further input from the applicant or public unless requested by the chair. Finally, if appropriate, we'll craft a motion and take a vote. And after the last agenda item, we'll adjourn the meeting. So first up is this request from Cote Restaurant. So we heard this 2 months ago. And it was supposed to have been posted for last meeting, but it was not posted properly. So it was pushed to this meeting. In the interim, as part of the last meeting, we got feedback from DOT that they wouldn't consider a partial change of the parking regulation. So it's a nighttime restriction from is it 11 PM to 6 AM. And so Coke's request was specific to their frontage, but as I said, the comment we got back from DOT was they don't really cherry pick these things. It has to be on either one side of the street or both. So we essentially put the whole issue out there and said, well, then let's talk about doing it on the entire block. We reviewed it internally with our state licenses and permits committee, which covers liquor licenses and the dining out applications. This street, 22nd Street between 5th and 6th, is in the restricted licensing area that was set up in the late 90s in order to control particularly late night activities and restrict the size of a number of noise generating activities in the area. So this street is actually on that, but the change in parking was not an action of either the SLAP committee or the transportation committee at the time. And it's our understanding that this was a combination of community, police, and DOT that imposed this restriction. So we asked Coke to repost it, which they did. And we'd like to be able to take public input on this tonight. And depending on that input, we may continue our discussion or table this. So I don't know that the committee, unless members of the committee have something specific to say on this, the goal tonight is to hear from the community. So we'll start with anybody that's in the room that wants to speak on this. Charles, yeah.
Do I speak in the mic or do I just speak?
You could just speak, yeah.
Alright, my name is Charles Nye and I'm a resident of the community. And last time Coke spoke, they made a plea, Chair, that they needed the outdoor dining because they didn't want to lose revenue. But in fact, they're opening a new location at 550 Madison Avenue. Not only that, but they're having 3 businesses there run by their hospitality group, Gracious Hospitality Group. And their opening hours are from 5 PM onwards. I just don't understand why they cannot just have their employees put out tables and chairs instead of having a structure that is going to lie empty, right, during the majority of the day until, they open. Why not just have their employees put the tables and chairs out and put them away when they're done? If they're that concerned about changing the hours, they could just change the hour to start at 5 PM or 4 PM. If they're going to change the parking restrictions to allow their staff to put out the tables instead of getting rid of the whole restriction. And as we know, this committee approved the widening of 6th Avenue, which took away commercial parking. And I don't think it makes sense, the bike lane. I don't think it makes sense to then remove more commercial parking, which seems to be disappearing. So excuse me, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just to clarify, it would not change commercial parking on the whole block. It would just remove the no standing reg on the block, but the commercial parking on the block would remain the same. There would just be a dining structure placed in the parking lane. It would take up probably 2 spots, I think it would be.
Thanks.
I just knew there's someone from my building who has a 6:30 cutoff. If they're, I think they're on Zoom. If you want to call them first, I just don't want to. I'll go first if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
We have time.
My name's Joe Rose. I'm a resident of the block at 40 West 22nd Street. The building is coming out, making a formal statement, and if someone wasn't able to do it, it'll be submitted in writing. But we have no problem with Coates having outdoor dining in the summertime, but changing the parking regulations for the whole block is crazy as far as I'm concerned. I can go back to sadly, as the old man on the mountain, I can tell you when these nighttime regulations were adopted because of the proliferation of nighttime uses and the intense street problems that come. And as you probably, I'm sure you guys know, at least as well as we do, 21st Street, the police have to close down the block. And what happens, that the parking regs, the police coming by and using their sirens to clear people that congregate on the street at 2 o'clock in the morning doesn't really help the problem. It may deal with a massing problem, but the late night parking regs are the single most effective way of addressing the problems of late night uses in entertainment districts. There were 6, one on our business, it'll reopen and some other things, currently 5, but there were 6 active liquor licenses on the block. No one has a problem. Welcome code, we welcome the uses, but the nighttime parking regulations, which keep people from hanging out, nighttime parties, people to drive in and is an essential part of the livability, the mixed use quality of the block. I would just personally urge to, the reason this change is being put forward, as I understand it, is because DOT doesn't, the regulations adopted for cafes didn't allow no standing zones to be utilized, which makes sense in terms of general no standing zones, which aren't then special nighttime regulations. I think that the easy fix that makes sense and doesn't gore anybody's axe is allow for applications of individual street restaurant, whatever they're called, or roadway restaurants that in specific cases in nighttime, special nighttime, no standing zones where that would, I think, allow code to move forward pursuant to appropriate regulations, but not transform the block into what would be a late night parking party after a nightmare. So that's
Good. Thank you. Anybody else in the room on this subject? All right, so let's go to anybody attending online that would like to address the issue.
Jim Taylor.
Yes, this is Jim Taylor. Thank you for allowing us to speak. I am an officer at the 40 West 22nd Street Co-op, located on 22nd Street between 5th and 6th. And we have reviewed this, and picking up on Joe's comments, I'd like to read a statement that I'd like to ensure is placed into the record. May I do so?
Yeah.
Dear Chairman Sigmund and members of the CB number 5 Transportation Committee, we are submitting this testimony on behalf of the residents of the co-op at 40 West 22nd Street in strong opposition to the proposal before you to remove the special late night parking regulations from the block of 22nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. Our block and neighborhood has a long history of grappling with the late night noise and disruption caused by bar, restaurant, and club owners congregating in the wee hours, horns honking, and late night partying by people who drive in from other residential parts of the metropolitan area and disregard the mixed-use character of our blocks. The special late night no standing regulations are a critical part of maintaining the habitability of our block. Our co-op has families with very young children, as well as elderly and frail residents, for whom late night disruption are a particular challenge. Our building does not object to our neighbor Coat restaurant operating a summertime street cafe, but we are quite sure that it is not necessary to change our block's late night protections to allow Coat to do so. Instead of City Department of Transportation suggesting that the parking regulations be changed year-round, the regulations governing street cafes should be amended to permit temporary street cafes to be permitted in special nighttime no standing districts on a case-by-case basis. That would be a rational approach that balances the needs of businesses, residents, and patrons. As you are probably aware, the 21st Street block has a high concentration of nightclubs and bars that cause so much late night disruption that the police have taken to closing the whole block to traffic on weekend nights. The clubs employed large security teams to try to manage those disruptions with limited success. It is certain that removing the late night parking regulations from 22nd Street would create havoc on our block. Club goers would park all along our block and then continue their pre and post partying all night long. There would be no security teams to even try to manage such problems, and the police coming by late at night to move people along with their sirens is another disruption with which we are all too familiar. As the neighborhood regains its vitality in the wake of the COVID disruptions in bars, restaurants and clubs continue to concentrate on our block and those surrounding us. We plead with you to vehemently oppose removing the special nighttime no standing rules, the one regulatory measure that has sustained our block's viability. Thank you for your consideration. And I want to underscore that this is a unanimous view of all members of the 40 West 22nd Street Co-op Association. Thank you for allowing me to set this forth on record.
Thank you. We lost our other,
Gary wants another hand.
Andrew Hyatt had his hand up and it's gone.
okay. So the other piece of information that came in this afternoon is that we did hear from the 13th precinct. And that they said that they had serious concerns for the reasons that have been mentioned, that there are already people that have been pushed off of 21st Street, and that they expect that those people would come and park on this block and introduce the same issues that we tried to manage on the other streets. So, you know, we will discuss it in business session, but this idea that the dining out rules would have to accommodate a specific request like this, and it wouldn't just be from Coat. There are, as were mentioned, there are other license holders on the street that would be eligible for this. But if the choice is having to lift it on one side of the street or the other, or on the entire street, I don't know that there's support in the committee to take that on. But I think there would be support for changing the rules to accommodate the use, you know, for individual applicants. But if there's any other comment, otherwise we'll move to the business session. Okay, so I don't know, I mean, I don't know if anybody really had a chance to look into this.
Yeah. I'm prepared to make a motion, but before doing that, I wonder if the committee wants to discuss further the case by case issue. If we want to include that in our resolution.
Yeah, I mean, dining out applications are case by case anyway. So the separate issue here is, and I think it would take a change to the regs, because this concept does not exist in the dining out regulations. So you know, as part of an application, say from a Coat, they would have to not just be applying for the dining out operation, but also for waiver of the late night parking regulation. And I'm sure there may be other categories of parking restriction where this would make sense as well. Somebody would have to look at that.
I just wanted to state, even if this
We're in business session, so
Yeah.
you're not allowed to speak unless you're called on by the chair.
So to keep it simple, do we just want to do a resolution to?
No, Joel's got it.
I just had a question.
Yeah.
What you just said it. The change, when you say change in the regs to allow this on case by case, is that a DOT promulgated reg, or is it like you have to go back to the statutes or the city
I don't know.
council or something?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the way, you know, having worn the slap hat for a while, it really did go back to the original legislation.
Legislation, okay, so that's not.
So just, that's where I was going to. So just to keep it simple, we just want to do a motion to deny the parking requested changes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't even know that we need to deny it. You know, we would have to recommend this to DOT in the first place, and if we're just not recommending it, then that's the end of the process.
Okay, so motion not to recommend.
Well, yeah, so the question is, do we want to pick up the recommendation to look at these traffic restrictions I think personally, I'm sensitive to the economic issue here. And we try to accommodate, these types of uses. We have a whole committee that's reviewing dining out applications. So, we'd like to promote it, but it's clear that, SLAP is not interested in getting involved in this issue. They don't see it as their purview. I don't think we can take the step of changing this in a known problem area on an entire block. And so we could generally support the idea of creating a different category or a waiver as part of the dining out application process, and leave it at that.
I pulled up the rules. Basically, it just says I'll just read it. Temporary outdoor dining setups shall not be located in any of the following designated zones on a roadway. 1, no stopping anytime. 2, no standing anytime. 3, no stopping during specific hours. Or 4, no standing during specific hours. So I think if we wanted to suggest anything, this is a DOT propagated rule, so we could ask them to reconsider this section. We don't have to say like specifically what we want changed, but we could say like reconsider, not allowing it in these 4 designations that they currently have.
Okay, I mean,
So we had that as a clause.
Well, that would be the entire resolution.
that would be the resolution.
Oh, okay, and that would disallow this request.
That would
Yeah, we would
fix this
just,
problem.
Yeah.
we would be proposing to
Would be
fix,
recommending them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
so. Any other? No, any other
I
discussion?
mean, you want to state it as a motion?
Sure, I mean, we don't have quorum, so we can't have a vote. Brian has their hand up. Do you wanna call on him? That's your prerogative. Alright. Give me 1 second, Brian. Let me find you and unmute you.
Sorry. So yeah, the no stopping, no standing does not allow them to operate the roadway cafe, but say it was no parking 11 PM to 6 AM, they'd be able to operate the roadway cafe. Just wanted to make that clear to you guys. That's what's in the rules.
If the change, you're saying if the change.
If it was changed from no
Parking
standing to no
rules.
parking,
Oh,
yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
I mean, that,
That was the issue when all the club uses, all the residents were coming to us about club uses, because many of them already had no parking and that didn't work.
oh, and they
There
were
was no
standing.
standing to allow the police to communicate the law.
Oh, up faster than.
Yeah.
Okay, so really the approach would have to be change it for these, specific.
Yeah.
Nighttime regulations, so, okay.
Should I make a motion?
Sure.
Yeah, we don't have quorum, so what do you wanna do about it?
They will have to go there.
Unofficial and rate vote.
Yeah, no, let's do it and it'll have to go to.
Alright, so I move that we make a suggestion to the DOT that they reconsider their rules. I'll find the actual section that I quoted, for the dining out program to reconsider if it makes sense to disallow temporary outdoor dining setups in those 4 sections that I mentioned. All right. Mohit's hand is gone. Oh, no, his hand is still there. Oh, it's because Mohit's a panelist, that's why. Mohit, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist, but in the meantime, I'm gonna let Todd make his comment.
Okay, Todd.
I just want to say, I support Samir's resolution. The way he said it, I've been very involved on the SLAP committee on the dining. And one of my concerns in doing the due diligence and working with my fellow SLAP committee members is just the holistic issue of having too many of these curbside cafes spread across a single block. And to the extent that there was some discussion of case by case, I've always felt that not allowing, given the current rules, I know that the current rules allow, as of right, so many of these dining out applicants for curbside cafes to have it. That doesn't mean that on a given block, it might reach a saturation point. So me personally, I am in favor of limiting it, or at least advising that not everyone should be automatically granted, or as Samir is suggesting, I think, if I heard it properly, that, you know, it's worth changing these rules to limit it if possible.
I second Samir's motion. What do we just, lose?
Mohit, did you have something you wanted to say?
Sorry, I was just trying to get it promoted to panelist, but in the spirit of the resolution that you have put forward, Samir, and what Todd just said, I would be totally aligned. I think there does need to be a more robust framework, as well as like a standard by which some of these outdoor establishments are set up. So I would be in favor of this general proposition.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I do wanna, we're the transportation committee, not the state license committee, so I don't think we have an opinion on when are there too many dining out sheds. That's really been part of the review that SLAP does of these applications. So I'd rather have that issues with them.
Yeah.
And we'll keep the issue of, you know, are we supportive of putting them into specific, you know, no standing areas? So, so I think that's the narrow piece for us.
Okay.
All right,
Did you want to second as well?
I did, yes.
All right, we can go through the vote. Do you want Mohit to?
Sure.
It's going to have to go to executive.
Mohit?
Yes.
Ankur's not here. Libby is not here. Nancy?
Yes.
Tristan?
Yes.
Samir is a yes. Christopher is not here. Tiffany is not
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yes.
Oh, we're for Amazing. All right, so let me fix that.
Especially because I made so many comments about the communities that weren't getting.
Annie is not here. David?
Yep.
Zool?
Yes.
George is not here. And then Joel.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Greg. Thanks. All right, so we'll go on to the three DOT items in any order that you want to present them. So
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's Colleen Chattergoon from City Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for accommodating us this evening. Tonight, as you mentioned, we have three really great presentations that we want to present to the committee. Joining me tonight is my colleagues from Transit Development, Public Realm, and the MTA. I think we can go into the order as what the agenda has. We can start off with Madison Avenue, and my colleague Bailey will give that presentation. So thank you for hosting us tonight.
Thank you for the introduction, Colleen. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, on our end.
yeah, you're muted.
Oh, it's okay. Can you hear me? Okay, there we go. Yeah, and thank you all at the Transportation Environment Committee of Community Board 5 for having us all tonight at your meeting. Give me one moment while I share my screen. Let's see here.
Yeah.
So you guys forgot about this meeting and went for a ride, and then on the West Side Highway, I remember. I gotta run home.
You probably just like Dallas. Dedication. Relax. Same thing. But we have focal sharing the screen.
Oh, yeah, let me make sure you can share this. Should be able to.
Sorry, just one moment. I think. So I'm joining from my web browser because I'm having issues on my Zoom software. If it still doesn't work, I may ask my colleague to share it in a moment, but let's see here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hard. I mean, I heard of it.
Is everyone able to see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so as Colleen said, my name is Bailey Lai. I am a project manager at Transit Development, and I am joined tonight with my MTA colleague, Jamie Cho, as well as our respective DOT and MTA colleagues. And today we will be presenting to you the Madison Ave bus improvement project that we are looking into between 23rd and 42nd Street. To give an overview of what we'll be talking about, we'll first go through the background and existing conditions of Madison Avenue, followed by the proposal for new double bus lanes, and summarize our project and next steps. So first off, why are we exactly looking at bus priority on Madison Avenue to begin with? To start off, we're specifically looking at the extent of Madison Avenue between East 23rd up to 42nd Street. And the reason why we're looking at this specific these specific blocks is because Madison Avenue already has double bus lanes, as you can see in this archival image on the right, between 42nd to East 60th since 1981. Back then, it was just a pilot project that became so successful that US DOT actually did a study on it, hence this picture that we found in the archive. And since then, double bus lanes have been in that stretch of Madison Avenue since. Today, there are over 92,000 daily bus riders on 34 bus routes that traverse through Madison Avenue. That includes the local buses of M1, M2, M3, M4, and Q32, as well as 29 express bus routes from other boroughs. And my colleague will explain that a little bit more detail later. In general, buses on Madison Avenue move people much more efficiently than other vehicles. The majority of the roadway passengers are on buses in both the AM and PM rush hours, despite the fact that buses make up less than a quarter of the road space. Despite this, bus speeds are as low as 4.5 miles per hour on the corridor compared to the Manhattan average of 6.2 and the New York City average of 8.1 miles per hour. To step back a little bit and give a bit more background on bus priority, back in 2020, New York City Council passed the New York City Streets Plan, which was adopted and to be implemented by New York City Department of Transportation. And as part of the streets plan, that included transit goals of increasing sustainable travel modes, expanding access to job opportunities, and removing barriers to travel. And as you can see here, Madison Avenue in the 2023 plan update was identified as a future bus priority corridor. To step back into Madison Ave and also give background to the existing north-south connections, you can see here that there's currently double bus lanes, as I previously mentioned, from 42nd Street up to 60th, as well as in the southbound direction, again from 60th Street up in Central Park, further down to 34th Street on 5th Ave in the southbound direction. And our project scope, again, is from 23rd Street, which is at Madison Square Park, going up to 42nd. And just to give you more visuals of a double bus lanes, since not everyone is readily familiar with them in the public, as you can see here, both 5th Ave and Madison Avenue have double bus lanes on the right side of the curb if you're looking in the direction of travel. I also just want to point out that the 5th Avenue double bus lanes actually connect to singular bus lanes that extend the entire east side of Central Park, all the way from 110th Street down to 60th. And in our evaluation of the existing double bus lanes for 5th Avenue, we have much more recent data as it was implemented much more recently in 2018. So between 2017 and 2019, the data showed that speeds on local routes increased 6 to 12%, and speeds on express routes increased 11 to 20%. So with that being said, I hand the mic over to Jamie to talk more in depth about bus routes and bus speeds on Madison Ave itself.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Cho, and I'm a bus service planner at MTA New York City Transit. As Bailey mentioned earlier, 34 bus routes travel within the Madison Avenue study area, with 5 local routes and 29 express routes. And most of these express routes travel via the entire segment, with local routes beginning travel on Madison Avenue at either 25th Street or 32nd Street. On an average weekday, over 1,000 buses travel within the study area, with almost 8,000 daily aggregated boardings and alights at the bus stops there. And if we go on to the next slide, the speeds. Overall, local bus speeds are slow all day in the study area. These maps here show the average bus speeds of the local and the express routes on weekdays during the AM peak, midday, and PM peak. As shown, local bus speeds are under 6 miles per hour throughout the day, while express bus speeds are under 9. During the midday and PM peak, bus speeds are especially slow, with local speeds dipping down to 4.5 miles per hour between 27th Street and 33rd Street in the midday, and express speeds down to 5.2 between 33rd Street and 42nd Street during the PM peak. And now back to you, Bailey.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, so with that being said, here is the existing cross-section of most of the extent of Madison Avenue between 23rd and 42nd. As many of you probably are already familiar with traversing along Madison Avenue, it consists of 4 lanes in this stretch. On both sides of the curb, there are curbside, or rather, on the west side, there's a curbside parking lane / rush hour travel lane. There is also a wider variety of curb regulations that I'll get into in a second. What I want to show you here, more importantly, is that there are currently 2 general travel lanes, one on the left and one on the right. And on the right curb, or east curb, there is almost exclusively bus stops, with the exception of a couple of curbside parking. So with that in mind, we also wanted to take a look at the existing general traffic volumes and speeds on the corridor to match up the data that we were seeing for bus speeds. So over here at DOT, we have done a traffic analysis to not just look at the traffic volumes and speeds, but also look at potential viability of our project proposal. In general, based on these maps, you can see that traffic volumes are lower at the southern end of Madison Avenue, which fits pretty logically since Madison Avenue begins at 23rd Street. So traffic has to be coming in from the side streets to travel further north. However, one interesting aspect of this is north of just at 42nd Street and just north of 42nd is where the traffic volumes are highest, so around 900 to even over 900 as you go north of 42nd. And despite the fact that there are existing double bus lanes north of 42nd, the traffic volumes are still able to manage to have the volumes go through during peak hours as well. And overall, even though we don't necessarily have the data like analysis like in the slide itself, our preliminary analysis does suggest that current volumes on Madison Avenue south of 42nd is viable with the addition of a bus lane. So moving back to the existing curb regulations, on the west curb, as I previously mentioned, we have a variety of curb regulations, whether that is 3-hour commercial meter parking, or in the case of 23rd to 25th Street, there's actually general 2-hour meter parking bordering Madison Square Park. In addition to that, there's a variety of hotel and truck loading, as well as some MTA bus layover parking. Contrast this with the east curb, where again, it's mostly bus stops, both for local and express bus stops, as well as some bus layover parking mainly towards the park. There is, however, other than the bus stops, 2 half blocks of hotel loading, taxi stands, and no parking that I'll get back to in a second in the proposal. I just also wanted to point out the side streets. We are analyzing both at Madison Avenue and the side streets for curb regulation, since we understand with our proposal that we want to allocate the curb as efficiently as possible for the wide variety of use. And speaking of the wide variety of use, the current situation, due to the fact that there are bus stops on almost every single block on the east curb, it means that there generally isn't parking allowed on the east curb to begin with, other than those 2 half blocks. But coupled with the existing curb regulations on the west curb, as well as the mix of high density commercial storefronts, offices, residences, and restaurants, this results in both slow bus speeds and high ridership, but also results in double parking frequently by delivery vehicles, cars, and for hire vehicles. All of this to say, in summary, is that the current street design can be improved to better not just bus riders, but also drivers and vehicles accessing the curb. So with this being said, we move on to our proposal for double bus lane. What we are proposing is to extend the existing 24-hour bus lanes from East 42nd Street up East 42nd Street to 60th Street, further down to 23rd. So in the northbound direction from 23rd to 42nd. This will still maintain the west curb parking and loading regulations for the most part, as well as 1 general travel lane on the left side of the roadway. In addition, there will be 2 general travel lanes. So if you see in the cross section here, there's curbside parking lane / rush hour travel lane. In some blocks at certain times of the day, the curbside will also double as a second travel lane as well. In addition, the double bus lanes will still maintain existing right turns. Hence, we are not adding why we are not adding vertical elements at this time to the middle of the roadway between the bus lane and the general travel lane. So one of the biggest benefits of a double bus lane is that it better organizes traffic flow, particularly on one-way avenues like Madison. With the buses almost exclusively using either the east curb or the east side travel lane to get to and from bus stops and layover space, it makes a lot of sense to separate the traffic so that buses are exclusively on the east 2 lanes, and then allowing the other general traffic to either pick up, drop off, or park on the west curb, and as well as traveling through the corridor on the west lane travel lane. In addition to this, we are also updating the curb regulations and looking at every single block as well as every single side street to determine how to best reallocate and repurpose different existing curb regulations. Specifically, we are currently looking at maintaining no standing across the east curb. So what this means would be repurposing 4 parking spaces and other conflicting regulations. So the 2 half blocks I mentioned earlier that currently are a total of 4 parking spaces throughout the whole corridor on the east curb. In addition, we will be adding half block left turn bays on the west curb at 27th, 29th, 31st, and 33rd Street. This is to accommodate the existing left turn volumes based on our traffic analysis. And this would be repurposing about 20 spaces. On top of this, we are hoping to add no standing on the west curb between 36th and 37th. This is to actually normalize what is currently no standing anytime between 34th and 36th. And then there's also PM no standing from 37th to 42nd. So currently there's in our traffic analysis, it shows that there's a blockage here because parking is allowed throughout the entire day, while the blocks immediately north and south of it have no standing for a second general travel lane during peak hours. In addition to all of this, we'll also be taking into consideration different meter timings and curb regulations on both Madison Avenue, and again, looking at any opportunities to repurpose outdated curb regulations on side streets as well. I will also just note that this plan is retaining about 80% of the existing parking spaces, and of the 20% of the existing parking that is being repurposed. That includes also the no standing PM only or the 10 spaces at 36th and 37th, which will continue to have the commercial meter parking at other hours of the day. So with all this being said, I also want to bring back Jamie to talk about automated camera enforcement, which is new on this corridor.
Thank you. So automatic camera enforcement, or ACE, helps to improve bus speeds and reliability. And it's a tool that uses a camera that's mounted on the buses to issue violations to vehicles that are either driving in a bus lane, double park on the street, or standing at a bus stop. That being said, vehicles can continue to make quick pickups and drop-offs. So in this corridor, the M2 and the M4, which travel on Madison Avenue for part of their northbound service, are currently under ACE expansion. And the M2 travels on Madison Avenue between 25th Street through 110th Street, while the M4 travels on Madison Avenue between 32nd Street and 110th Street. And pairing the proposed bus lanes with the ACE will go a long way in improving the bus service along Madison Avenue.
Thanks again, Jamie. So with this being said, in summary, we believe our proposal will improve bus speeds and reliability for tens of thousands of daily bus riders, given that in the current situation, buses, commercial loading, and other vehicles compete for limited space on Madison Avenue. In addition, our proposal, we believe, will maintain curb access for local businesses and residents, as well as better allocate roadway space between transit riders, commercial drivers, and all other users of the road space. So for our next steps, we are currently in the final stages of refining our design and traffic analysis. And from there, we are hoping to implement our proposal sometime this summer. And we will continuously monitor and come back to the corridor after implementation to monitor the ongoing performance in the fall and winter of this year as well. And as always, we will continue to look into other ways to coordinate with the local community for any updates to this project. So thank you all again for your time in listening to our presentation and our proposal. With that being said, I'm now happy to take any discussion and questions.
I'll try to make the audio to the owls.
Yeah. Yes.
Billy, do you mind saying something? We're just testing our mics.
Oh yeah, testing.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll take questions from the committee first. I just, Samir and I had the benefit of having a preview of this. So there were a few questions that were raised at that I'll bring up here as well. And then I had a question that's a little nerdy, but I'll ask it anyway. So the things that were raised by the group when we previewed it were whether, because the traffic data is all from prior to congestion pricing, and what the impact would be if, when we look at this post the imposition of congestion pricing, what do we see the overall impact on bus speeds being in that case? There were questions raised about the fact that Madison Avenue is 4 lanes wide from 23rd to 42nd, but 5 lanes wide at 42nd. So we'd effectively be losing a travel lane south of 42nd, whereas that wasn't an issue when double bus lanes were introduced at north of 42nd. They still had 2 travel lanes. And then also the fact that future of 5th, we have not seen, although apparently that's imminent, we have not seen the proposal for bus lane operations on future of 5th and what impact that might have on this proposal, if any. So I don't know, Bailey, if you want to tackle those and then we can move on.
Yeah. Thank you for summarizing what was already from the local leaders briefing. So to answer the first part of the question, so for the part where Madison Avenue was or currently is one more lane north of 42nd, that our traffic analysis accommodates for that, and we see that again with the actually let me go back to the slide. Okay, yeah. Or actually, I'll actually go back to I'll go to the appendix because that actually explains it a little bit more. So in the existing double bus lanes, as you can see here, there is much higher volumes of vehicle traffic. So even though that there is an extra travel lane, there's actually more vehicle throughput north of 42nd. And based on this experience, as well as our traffic analysis, we believe that a single bus lane, or rather a single general travel lane, coupled with one offset bus lane, in addition to 2 general travel lanes at certain blocks where there will be rush hour regulations, will be sufficient to Madison Avenue, south of 42nd Street. But we do recognize like that it is it will be a change in which drivers will have to adapt and potentially reroute. So we are still undergoing that analysis. So that's why I say it's a preliminary traffic analysis that has not been finalized. I don't remember if I answered the second part of the question.
Well, while we're on this, let me just ask you my question. I guess the question I had is that because, this sort of southern part of Madison Avenue is already moving like fairly well. If you speed up the good part, the fast part, does it slow down the slow part when you do that? So if you can get more throughput in the lower parts of Madison Avenue, does that just start to back up what's happening in the northern parts of Madison Avenue?
So what we have found actually is that there is already existing traffic backup heading towards 42nd Street, and we believe part of the reason why is actually because of the interweaving of traffic as traffic is trying to get away from the existing bus lanes as they enter into 42nd Street. So it's what we believe is happening right now is that with the proposal, if you have double bus lanes that extend further north into 42nd, there will actually be some, not significant, but some amount of already self-sorting, where that would actually relieve some of the existing traffic. Couple that with approaching 42nd Street, between 37th to 42nd currently, there are PM rush hour regulations. So with traffic enforcement, making sure that that curb is clear, we'll still have 2 general travel lanes, at least during the highest volumes of the day. I don't know if that necessarily answers your entire question.
No, I think that addresses it. So the other pieces that came up in the other session were what you expect to see when you start seeing the impacts of congestion pricing on these flows.
Oh, yes.
And then the future fits proposal.
Yeah, so we're more than happy to look into this further. The reason why we are specifically looking at October 2024 data, which is before congestion pricing, is because at the time we were doing the traffic analysis, this was the latest data for both the bus beats and general traffic. What ends up happening with traffic analysis is we actually have people go out into the field, and it takes at least a couple of weeks, if not over a month, of both just collecting the data and actually manually sorting through the video footage, as well as the ATR counts, which are physically like tubes that physically run through the corridor that manually count. But if needed, we are more than happy to like take a look for existing traffic volumes, given that I believe there may, with the MTA at least, there may possibly be already new updated data for since the congestion pricing started.
Hey, if I could just chime in. Hey, everybody, Sarah Feller, DOT, I work with Bailey. I also just wanted to add to Bailey's response, that we've seen since congestion pricing is launched, a 12 or 13%, I forget the exact number, but 12 or 13%. Thank you, 13% reduction in traffic in the congestion pricing zone. And so when we, as part of the very, thorough and detailed traffic analysis that Bailey and our whole team underwent to understand exactly what would the effect be on traffic with this new bus lane, we did account for that, and that's one reason why we feel confident that that this bus lane will improve bus speeds while also keeping traffic congestion in check. Another thing I'll add is that during and after implementation, we are going to be boots on the ground, paying very close attention to how traffic is operating, as well as to how buses are operating, and we're going to be out there at different times of day, different days of the week, making our own observations, continuing to crunch data because we do get fresh data on traffic volumes, bus speeds, traffic speeds as well, we'll also continue the conversation with the community board and with other stakeholders, just to make sure that we're remaining accountable. If any adjustments are needed, we can make them. But yeah, thank you.
And then, related to this is, at some point you come back and you adjust the bus schedules after you digested the data. Is that an ongoing process now with these changes?
I think,
Hello.
oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, hello, this is Jamie again from MTA. That's something that we could definitely monitor after implementation.
Yeah, so MTA and DOT are closely collaborating to make sure that if there are any issues with the bus frequency as a result, or rather like the bus service as a result of the double bus lanes being implemented, we can definitely adjust and coordinate further.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, just one. And then future of Fifth, do you expect, I know it came up in that session. I don't know that it has a direct impact on this topic, but.
Yeah, so I can just address it again. Yeah, so for Fifth Avenue, I will just say first off, it is in the southbound direction. So whichever proposal that ends up being implemented, that if there is diversion of traffic, that will end up going in a different direction. However, I will say at this time, we're analyzing Madison Avenue as is with the existing Fifth Avenue proposal, just given that is a different proposal.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Nancy.
I think it's great that you are offering, you are going to be boots on the ground and monitoring, but how are you going to report back to us? And how often are you going to do that? And what's your timeline? And where will that information be posted so that we can watch it? I know that we've had other projects on this committee that we've reviewed where we're told it'll be monitored, but we never get any information back. So how and when and what's your plan to report back to us?
Yeah, no, I totally recognize that DOT can sometimes in collaboration with Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office, we'll make sure to actually report back to you in a timely manner. Just recognizing that sometimes, recognizing we may drop the ball sometimes, but we will make sure to give back any information in a timely fashion. But as of right now, we're still working out the details of first the implementation, and then from there, we will coordinate further with Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office.
Hi, Nancy. It's Colleen Chattergoon in the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office. Projects of this magnitude, we always come back to the community board and give an update in terms of the analysis and what we have concluded. So we do plan to come, and I will keep the community board informed of the timeline, and when we'll come back again to give the update, okay?
So you don't have anything planned right now? There's nothing in the strategy of putting this together right now that has a reporting strategy in place yet?
It's not that we don't have a strategy in place. We do plan to come to the community board. It could be within 6 months or it can be within a year. So again, once we have the analysis, we will make that determination, and then I will schedule the meeting with CB5.
Hi, my name is Mariah Richardson from the MTA. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Just in support of this, so the analysis typically we want to take a little bit once implement.
You're breaking up. Luke?
I think you muted
You ended up
yourself,
muting, yeah.
or you got muted somehow.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, I just wanted to add that with projects of this magnitude, especially with the analysis of bus riders and the speeds, we typically want to wait until the benefits of the project have kind of settled in. So that might even be a couple weeks after the project is implemented. So I think the timeline from the MTA perspective would also depend on exactly when it's implemented, because we wouldn't want to report statistics on the project on, say, Labor Day or something like that. So Colleen, I know, is very capable and we coordinate together. So just giving a little bit more context as to why that might be unsure at this moment.
Okay.
One other thing I'll add real quick is that, different community boards, different elected officials, different stakeholders have different requests and preferences as to when you hear back from us, how often you hear back from us, what those reports look like. So if you'd like us to come back at a certain, within a certain time frame, please reach out to Colleen's office, the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's office, and we can have a conversation from there. Our intent is never to be cagey about data. We're very eager to, to share our findings, and we always automatically, after a project is implemented, it's baked into our process that we are collecting that data internally. Again, both the qualitative data being out in the street and the quantitative data from our data tools. But yeah, let us know what, when you'd like to hear from us. And as Mariah said, some data points require a little bit of time for our systems to get them, as well as a little bit of time for drivers and bus operators and everyone to adjust to new regulations. But we can, if you want to hear back within a fairly short time frame, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good topic. We can just spend a second on this. I mean, there have been a number of items that came to the committee over the last few months, and they all have their own, unique timeline. Some of them are construction, hardscape. Some of them, like this, are, more easily instituted. So it probably makes sense for us, over the next couple of months to think about what, a schedule would work for, the specific things that have come to us over the last 5 or 6 months. So we can talk about that. Okay.
Thanks for the data tonight. Please keep it coming. We appreciate, that some data is raw and some is more qualitative, but we're a little nerdy. Just send us the data as frequently as possible. We'd appreciate it. With the increase in speeds, particularly the express buses, congratulations. If we're getting up to 20% on those buses, that should be something, a noticeable positive change to the commuters. So we'd really like to hear any data that cooperates that, if you're hearing from the commuters on that. Going back to curb management for a minute, can you speak at all about daylighting at the intersections?
Yeah, so
Please.
oh, sorry, I may have interrupted you at the, was there a fault to whether you wanted specific aspects of daylighting or?
Whatever you can share with us about daylighting and curb management.
Yeah, so currently the proposal doesn't incorporate daylighting. I will say there are existing daylighting intersections here, but we are more than happy to take a look at the design. And once we are further down finalizing it, we can certainly see whether daylighting more intersections is appropriate.
So just to follow up with that, is there anything that you can do with the ACE program, the camera enforcement, that would specifically capture what's happening at these intersections where we're hoping to have that daylighting?
So for automated camera enforcement, it doesn't capture violations of daylighting as far as I am aware. However, we can certainly look into other aspects of better enforcing violations of daylighting, whether that's like traffic enforcement or other avenues as well. There are other examples across the city of like perhaps like looking at physical elements. But at this time for Madison Avenue, given the nature of like the changing curb regulations for various times of day, whether it's like parking or rush hour regs, we're not necessarily looking at physical elements at this time. But again, like in the final design, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll preclude it from final consideration.
So
And I'll also
last-
add, sorry, I'll just
go
add
ahead.
really quickly that the proposal also does include left turn lanes at a few locations. It includes no standing regulations, and those function as daylighting as well.
So maybe just a little technical. So is the camera constantly running, or is simply it's clicking onto something and then it's running?
I can answer it in the beginning, but MT, feel free to jump in if I say anything incorrectly. From my understanding, the way automated camera enforcement works is every bus, so specifically the M2 and M4 for this upcoming expansion has front like bus mounted cameras, and the way it works is it if it captures one vehicle standing, say at a bus stop, the next bus comes and that vehicle is still there, typically within a couple of minutes or so. I don't remember off the top of my head what is the exact timing of it, but if the vehicle is still captured in at least 2 of those cameras, that indicates that the vehicle's been standing there the entire time, and from there, both MTA and DOT manually review those violations to then send the citation. And again, MTA, Jamie, feel free to jump in if there's anything that I said that was incorrect, or if you want to expand on that.
No, you're correct. And so as Bailey was mentioning, if the camera on the bus captures a vehicle that is violating driving in a bus lane, double parking on the street, or standing at a bus stop, then an image would be captured. And then, and then if another bus comes by and it gets captured again within a certain time frame, then a violation would be issued.
So right now it's programmed to capture a specific violation, but in theory, it could be programmed to cover the intersections and we can see what was happening in terms of daylighting.
We would have to get back to you on that, or if Mariah would like to expand on the response.
And that requires state legislative action.
And we're gonna talk more about daylighting on 34th Street because it comes up quite a bit there, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
thank you.
okay, if your question is answered, I'm happy. But
I think we're good for now. We'll get into it on 34th Street.
all right, sounds good. Thank you.
So, are you done with questions or?
No,
on that?
if you have this.
Oh, I just have one.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it was Jamie or Bailey who said earlier on in the presentation in part 1, kind of a throwaway line about, well, traffic will adapt. I assume you're talking about taxis, ride shares, delivery vehicles, all those that are now being compressed into either 1 lane or 2 lanes during rush hour. So those vehicles are going to adapt. The only northbound through streets east of 10th Avenue that go through north and continue north of 60th Street is Madison, 3rd, and 1st. And 3rd is basically a total traffic jam at the Queensboro Bridge. So you're envisioning that a ride share that's going north on Madison, pick somebody up on Madison and 25th, is going to make a right turn across 2 bus lanes somehow and go to First Avenue. I mean, you're talking about a lot of traffic
not a
lights and a
busway.
lot.
You don't have to turn off. You can keep going straight.
So I know, but
Yeah,
they're talking traffic patterns adjusting because they're going from 2 travel lanes or 2 or 3 to 1 or 2. So unless you meant something different by adjusting, I mean, that's what I took from it. That's what you've always meant when you talked about closing things on Broadway.
Yeah, so to clarify, Madison Avenue will, like someone earlier just said, sorry, didn't catch the name. It will not preclude people from going, general travel from going straight through Madison Avenue. It will only reallocate one of the 2 existing travel lanes in the middle as a bus lane. So traffic can still go straight through Madison Avenue, which is different from a busway like 14th Street or in the upcoming presentation there tonight for 34th Street.
So maybe I misphrased the question. So what you said, or what either you or James said earlier, was that drivers will have to readjust their traffic patterns. And I took that to mean that because it's going from 2 lanes to 1 lane, it's gonna be a lot more crowded and a lot slower on Madison Avenue for everyone except buses. Where are those people gonna go? Or what did you mean by readjust their traffic patterns?
If I use the word readjusting, I apologize. I think it's more so of like, I meant based on the existing traffic analysis, we look to see where the existing traffic volumes, whether the throughput is viable for a double bus lane or the reallocation of 1 lane into a bus lane. So in the way our traffic analysis works in our software, we look at both the existing volumes and looking at the existing geometry of the lanes, as well as all the curb regulations. In addition, we also look at the side streets as well. So everything from not just Mass Avenue, but also all of the traffic volumes and turn movements from the side streets are incorporated into our analysis. And then from there, we create multiple scenarios, including the proposal that we ended up proposing to you tonight, to determine what if the proposals are viable given the existing traffic volumes. In terms of readjusting, typically what we find, despite our very, very lengthy traffic analysis on paper, in reality, oftentimes what happens is that traffic volumes actually do reduce on corridors with bus lanes. So traffic oftentimes, even if the traffic analysis says it's X amount, we often find that the traffic is not as dire. But because of the traffic analysis, like we usually use that conservative data first, even if our best in our case studies, that has often to be quite conservative compared to the reality.
If I could also just chime in to add to Bailey's response, about your question about, will drivers take other streets? Will drivers that currently take Madison end up taking 3rd or 1st or 6th? And ultimately, drivers, and we've seen this over and over again in projects, all over the city over almost 20 years of this program, is that ultimately, drivers do what makes sense. Especially nowadays, everyone has Waze, Google Maps on their phone, showing them the most efficient route. And ultimately, we know that the vast majority of vehicles that currently drive up Madison are going to continue driving up Madison, and that's fine. But around the edges, around the margins, most of these projects, what we find is that, for example, if someone is taking a ride share from the East Village or the Lower East Side, up to a destination on Madison Avenue, maybe they stay on First Avenue a little bit longer. Maybe there are some folks who take the local bus because the local bus operates better now. We're realistic about these expectations. Again, we expect the vast majority of vehicles that currently drive up Madison during the busiest hours of the day to continue doing so. But what we find is that just a little bit of those adjustments based on people doing what naturally makes sense for them tends to allow traffic to level out. So, it doesn't get, it will be comparable, we expect, to the traffic levels and congestion levels today. And that is something that we will continue to monitor, again, both qualitatively and quantitatively during and after implementation.
Thank you for expanding my initial comment, Sarah. And I will just make also one final comment. I believe Park Avenue also has a northbound travel as well. So even closer than First Avenue, people can still take that northbound direction as well.
Okay, Colleen, are you looking for a resolution from us in support of, let's say, each of these things?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay, all right. So, oh yeah, all right, we have one hand, yes. Okay. Well, public input, we'll have one hand up. Anybody else? Oh, Charles, yeah.
Just real quick, if you're online, please raise your hand if you want to comment on this item.
Okay, Charles, yeah, you can go ahead.
Hi, I'm Charles and I live in the area actually, right, Madison Avenue is right at the end of my block. I was wondering, could you please let me know, if these, bus stops will be having Navilens to help people who are blind know, bus information, if there'll be any seating for the elderly, any sort of a shelter from the elements. Also, what will happen to the parades that annually happen on Madison Avenue, such as Persian Day Parade and Sikh Day Parade and all that sort of thing? Will they have to find a new venue, you know, to keep the buses running? Because obviously when parade happens, Madison is shut down in a particular route from 38th Street down to 23rd Street. And I also would like to know, when it comes to bus layover stops, where will the bus drivers be taking their breaks? Because there has been in the past where some buses have used illegally the no standing zone in front of my building, for example, on 28th Street as a layover stop, even though it's not a layover stop, and I'm hoping that won't happen again. So I was wondering if you could please answer some of those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question, first of all. So for the first part, in terms of access for the people with vision and disabilities, we are looking at not just the roadway itself, but also the sidewalks and curb, the actual sidewalk itself. So what we've been doing, both Jamie and me and MTA and DOT at large, is looking at the bus stops and trying to determine whether if they are currently accessible or not. We have identified a couple of bus stops, for example, where we will be adjusting to meet at least the minimum ADA requirements in terms of like widths and lengths of the bus stops, for example. But in terms of street furniture, we are more than happy to also look at opportunities for adding additions onto the sidewalk as well. In regards to the parade aspect, we can definitely take a second look at that, but in terms of special events, this project should not preclude the special events from occurring, since, for example, we're not adding physical barriers between the two lanes currently. And also in the existing situation, buses are diverted in any case during any special event, which we can continue to do so for any upcoming events. And with the bus layover specific to your building, we can definitely take a second look into that and determine whether there should be more bus layover that can be reallocated from the existing parking. But we can definitely further coordinate through the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's office on that specific block.
And Navilens, is that a program that's rolling out on on MTA bus as well, or?
Oh, sorry, which program?
I can
jump in to speak to that. There is an Avalance pilot program that is being used on buses, I believe, including on the BX12 in the Bronx. That's a pilot program that's ongoing. Unfortunately, that would not be coming to this project as part of that, but we're hoping that the pilot continues to be successful and that may be rolled out further.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the? Miriam?
Oh, I do see, this was a while ago, but someone asked what daylighting was. So daylighting is when at the corners of intersections, there is channelized markings or physical barriers such as bike corrals or granite blocks to demarcate where cars cannot park. Currently, in New York City, from my understanding, cars are actually legally allowed to park up to the crosswalk, but with daylighting, that allows more visibility for drivers that are on the travel lane to see people at the crosswalks.
Gestures not to get hit.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 4 hands up.
Miriam, do you want to go first?
Yes, am I audible to you?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I am very interested in some of these presentations on the hopefully new improved busways. I'm actually from Community Board 4, and I've been a disability activist. I'm from Elevator Action Group also, and I was pleased to hear the question about the bus stops, which are not always on the radar. When there's a project like this, and there are going to be some discussions later on today, on 34th Street and other hopefully improved bus lanes, are bus stops examined if they don't, and improved with seats and shelter from inclement weather if they're not there? Does DOT work on the bus stops, or is this something that has to be an ask to DOT to improve a bus stop in a specific intersection? And I'm pleased that there are a number of people there from DOT, which I think works on improving the bus stops.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Miriam. So it's a bit of both, really. So DOT continuously monitors through a specific street furniture unit, but also here at Transit Development, we also look at bus stops all over the city to determine where to best site new bus shelters, as well as reallocate existing shelters and other street furniture. If there are any issues like specific to a bus stop on Madison Avenue, or actually rather really any bus stop in the city, say for example, you notice there's maybe street furniture or sidewalk conditions that make the bus stop inaccessible or less than usable for everyone, you are more than welcome to connect to DOT via either 311 or to further connect with the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office, specifically at DOT, and we can work with you on that.
Move on to the next person.
Yep.
All right, Jim Wright. Jim, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, Jim Wright, resident of Community Board 5, and I do use the local buses on this corridor. So personally, I think it's great to see the MTA looking at extending the double bus lines down to 23rd. And I'm really particularly impressed to see the level of data that's behind the design work here. So congrats to that. I'll just keep it brief on my comments. One is one of the sort of promises of congestion pricing that didn't happen before it was implemented was improvements in bus lanes, and particularly express and exclusive bus lanes. So my question here is, since it's now in effect, it seems to me this would be a perfect case study for DOT and MTA to study really closely to see what the impacts are, particularly if there is reduction in traffic from congestion pricing, which speeds up the buses, as well as the history that when there is more bus lanes on a street, that the traffic, the non-bus vehicular traffic, tends to naturally decrease. Part of that, I think, is due to drivers transitioning to public transit. So again, I think this would be a perfect case study, and I hope it's documented in that way. My question, and this is something that I'm not a driver, but I think it's important for drivers to understand the rules and what's expected if they need to take a right turn in a bus lane. And I may have missed this, but if someone is turning right in a bus lane, one of these two bus lanes, they're not stopping but turning right, what are the rules, and how does that enforcement work with the cameras? And related to that, I think it's really important for this information to be clearly communicated to drivers through signage. I don't think the goal here is to collect tolls, but actually to improve traffic movement. So I think signage is also a key part of this. So I'll just leave those out there for you. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think that's very valid. The potential concern for ACE capturing right turns on what will be the future double bus lanes. So currently, the way the system is set up is even if there is a right turning vehicle that just happens to be stopped right before a bus because it's turning right, as long as it's making that right turn within those couple of minutes, that should, and also with the manual review of the final footage, that should weed out any potential user error, or rather camera errors that will result in any unwanted violations as a result of a right turn. And if that does happen, drivers are more than welcome to fight that, because that is, that is will be allowed on the corridor. With that being said, signage is always a part of our projects for bus lanes. So we will not only just have the red bus lane paint and also bus only markings on the ground, but we will ensure that proper signage is posted across the entire extent of Madison Avenue, similar to the existing signage that is on Madison Avenue north of 42nd for the existing double bus lanes.
Okay, thank you. Is Andrew?
Yeah, Andrew, you can speak.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks. I'm a resident of CB5. I live pretty close to Madison Avenue. This looks great. I think it's long needed. It's going to be great for bus riders. I have a question about the automated camera enforcement. Like I'm sure the MTA has seen that like many cars are getting around this by popping their trunk. Are there plans to sort of try to circumvent that kind of chicanery?
Hi, this is Mariah Richardson. Not that I am aware of that the MTA would be in charge of, at least. I can get back to you on that.
Great.
And Colleen, I don't know if you have thoughts on this as well, just general kind of enforcement against license plate obscuring.
So, I mean, anything dealing with such matters is handled by NYPD. They're the ones who enforce that, but we can work very closely, with them on these particular issues, especially if it's problematic at certain locations. But, this falls under the NYPD jurisdiction.
Great. All right, next up is Chris Sanders.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that the detailed analysis that you all did on Madison Avenue with these bus lanes is great. My partner uses the bus on Madison Avenue to get to work. And so, yeah, I think it can totally handle another bus lane. I usually go to the coffee shop on Sinico right there. I'm a member of Community Board 5. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I have no other questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nobody else, we'll go to the business session. So I think it's pretty obvious what we would be doing here. Yes.
We have 2 more items, so I'm just gonna start by making a motion and then people can say if they don't want it. I move that we support the bus lane with the requirement that they come back within a year of implementation to give us a full thorough analysis of how the program is going.
Yeah, I like that, but I wonder, do we want to add our request for more frequent data?
I think a year is fine.
I think it should be 6 months. We'll know in 6 months.
We can say 6 months if you want.
By the time it's a year, we'll all have forgotten about it.
Yeah, I would second that.
Yeah, and we will, as I said earlier, like there's a whole bunch of things that have come to us. And so we'll have to sit down and go through and see what the reporting cycle is. Good, that's fine.
Okay.
6 months.
I think it would be, if there's a way that they could post the information somewhere on a website, would be really great. Then we don't have to go the whole thing of making an appointment, can everyone make it, blah, blah. Just give us a place to post it.
Okay.
On a regular basis. Like all the other data that is collected in the city.
Okay, so how about we say we support the bus lane, but we want them to come back within 6 months to report to us. And additionally, publicly post the report and any data that they have available on the project on an ongoing basis.
Yes.
Great.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I just want to make sure I write it down so I don't. I assume I'm gonna write it. Oh, yeah, fine.
Keep volunteering, so.
I want to keep the
You make it
meeting,
easy.
want to keep the meeting moving. Mohit, are you still
Yeah.
here?
I am.
Great. How do you vote?
Yes.
Great. Encore's absent. Nancy?
Yes.
Tristan?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tiffany?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Zool?
Yes.
And Joel?
Yes.
Did I miss anyone on the committee? Anyone come in late? Nope. All right. It's approved, 8000.
Great.
Go on to the next item.
Next up.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
So the next
everyone.
item,
Thank you.
the next item is going to be Broadway Vision.
Hi.
Hmm.
Great. I am Jessica Ronstein. I'm the Deputy Director of Project Development and Delivery for the Public Realm at DOT. And I'm joined by my colleague Melina, who will be sharing screen.
Is that visible to everybody?
Yeah, we've had a request, when you're speaking to a graphic, if you could describe the graphic.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are going to be splitting the presentation, so I'll kick it off and then I'll hand it off to Melina, who is the project manager for the project. So thank you all for coming tonight. We are here to talk about Broadway Vision, this year's or the most recent sort of installation. Next slide. So this is the public realm feedback loop. So it speaks to our sort of priorities as a unit. So we always start with partnership and engagement. This is an image of showing outreach that we have done with partners across the city. Community partnership and engagement leads to many of our programs, many of our partner-based programs like Open Streets. This is an image showing an open street and a child playing on an open street. Our partnerships and programs lead to sort of open the doors to more people telling us sort of what they want out of the streets in their neighborhood, leading to more crossing and intersection improvements, more dynamic curb and corridor strategies, and more premier public spaces. So those were all images of people crossing at a crosswalk, a shared street, and a plaza. And then we bolster all of those programs with programming and concessions. This is an image of Broadway in the boroughs and equity-focused maintenance. And that all leads to like larger, more comprehensive planning and policy. And that leads back to community partnerships. So looking at the corridor as a whole, so this is an image of the shared street on Broadway between 38th and 39th in its current condition. Next slide. So we have been working on Broadway for many, many years now, and all of these efforts are made possible by our partnerships with along the corridor. So to the south, Union Square Partnership, Flatiron Nomad Partnership, 34th Street Partnership, Garment District Alliance, and the Times Square Alliance. Slide. And this is a timeline that goes into a little bit of the history here, starting in 2008, when we first started installing plazas along the corridor. And then, you know, through the years, as I mentioned, sort of like coming back, doing more at the plazas, reconfiguring the plazas, starting with Flatiron in 2017, Herald Square in 2019, more in Flatiron in 2020 and 2021. And Garment District in 2021 as well as the reconfigurations in 2023 and 2024. And then most recently working with 34th Street Partnership on a holiday market on the block of 3536. And then that sort of leads us into our 2025 goals, right? Looking at a cohesive refresh between Herald Square and Times Square, creating a new plaza block between 35th and 36th, and updating the shared street geometry on 41st and 42nd, along sort of all paired with the comprehensive capital scoping. So that's the project that you guys have seen most recently between 38th and 40th. So this is an image showing a map of Broadway and how it cuts sort of from park to park, connecting Washington Square to Union Square to Madison Square, and then all the way up to Central Park, as long with highlighting the work we've been doing here across the years. Next slide. And again, sort of as a reminder, right, this was what we implemented in 2023 with the new plazas between 25th and 27th. Slide. Along with the shared streets between 27th and 32nd, that whole project formalized two-way biking on that stretch of Broadway, really meeting a need that was already sort of there. Slide. And then last summer we implemented the plaza between 17th and 18th. Sort of learning some lessons from those 25 to 27 plazas, like giving a little bit of a buffer between the bike lane and the curb and the sidewalk, and narrowing it slightly to really sort of meet the needs and ensure that this is really sort of the more social cycling that we want to see across the corridor. Next slide. And again, more shared streets between 18th and 21st. Those we implemented last year. And then the Garment District. So on the left-hand side is the existing plaza, and then on the right-hand side is a rendering. Again, this is something that you guys saw pretty recently, but just a reminder, this is all work that is being sort of contemplated together. And so this year, or yeah, this year what we are here to talk through is sort of split up by time, right? So this year we are looking to implement a plaza between 35 and 36, as well as the shared block between 41st and 42nd. And then because this is all one stretch and we want it to be sort of considered all together, we're also going to be showing you the scheme for shared blocks between 36 and 38. Those we plan to implement in 2026 to align with the construction start for the blocks between 38 and 40. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Melina.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Melina Lawrence, the project manager. I think I'm battling some allergies today, so sorry if things sound mumbled. But getting a little bit into project background, thinking about Broadway as an iconic corridor, according to our pedestrian mobility plan. It's kind of at the highest category, which is a global corridor. And the pedestrian mobility plan kind of takes every street in the city and assigns it to one of these 5 categories, based on things like pedestrian count volume, so just the number of pedestrians there on any given day, as well as kind of land use items like schools, parks, attractions, and then based on these categories assigns sidewalk widths that kind of correspond to pedestrian comfort and convenience. So making sure that people have enough room to actually pass by each other on the street without like running into pinch points or things like that. And so Broadway, which has like a lot of tourists, a lot of kind of folks moving in and out. It's kind of at our highest category, which is a global corridor, recommends a sidewalk width of about 25 feet. Right now, we're at a full sidewalk width of about 28 after we added in some plazas and programming a few years ago. But just really wanting to think about this as we see more demand for things like seating, elements and planters that kind of live in the spaces that we're creating, that kind of create this furnishing zone. And so thinking about how kind of pedestrians are the prominent users on the corridor, this is a map, Broadway between 35th and 42nd, showing counts for pedestrians, vehicles, and cyclists. And what we're seeing and what we have seen in the lower parts of Broadway as we've started to implement more of these shared streets is that vehicle volumes are continuing to decline, and pedestrians and cyclists are really the predominant users of the corridor. South of 39th Street, so between the Plaza Block in Garment District and the Plaza Block down closer to Herald Square, we're seeing about 1 vehicle or less per minute. And then a little bit closer to 42nd Street, Times Square, seeing about 2 to 3 vehicles per minute. Comparing that to 3,000, 4,000, almost 5,000 pedestrians, kind of at the busiest time in the morning between 9 to 10. And then we're also seeing in the morning, especially in these southern blocks, cyclists really outnumbering the amount of vehicles that we're seeing. And then those kind of only increase when we look at the weekday peak in the afternoon. So that's 6 to 7 p.m. This is the same map, just showing different counts. The vehicle counts are similar. They're in that like 1 to 2 vehicles per minute range, south of 39th. And then kind of also within the 2 to 3 vehicles per minute, closer to Times Square, but really seeing an increase in pedestrians, about 9,000 at the highest on the corridor towards 42nd Street, but maintaining between 4,000 and 6,000 for the rest of the corridor. And then in the afternoon, really seeing the number of bikes outnumber double, if not triple, quadruple from the amount of vehicles. And so we've done a bit of public engagement and we have a survey open. We were out there on the street last Thursday between 12 and 4:30. We spent a couple hours in Garment District and then moved our way south towards Herald Square. Majority of the folks that we talked to and have responded to our survey so far work in the area or find themselves in the area for shopping, dining, kind of leisure activities. Walking is the predominant mode used on Broadway, over 90% of respondents. And then thinking about the pedestrian experience, folks reported that they usually feel safe from vehicles on a scale from always, usually, occasionally to never. And pedestrians also said that they usually feel safe from cyclists and other micromobility users. From a cyclist or micromobility perspective, again, the highest amount said that they usually feel safe from vehicles, but 22% reported feeling a little less safe occasionally, and 14% reported feeling not safe from vehicles ever. And then we also asked about some of the plaza, shared streets, and two-way cycling, and kind of got a mix of positive, neutral, negative comments. So regarding the plaza block that we're looking to do, this is an image showing the outreach boards that we had last week, and that are also kind of integrated into our online survey. Hearing some folks want the entire corridor to be closed to vehicles, hearing others say that the kind of current improvements have been great and are looking for more, and that being balanced with other folks wanting to maintain vehicle access in some capacity. For the two-way cycling and shared streets, again, kind of a mix of comments. Some folks feeling like the cycling lanes need additional capacity, and seeing vehicles kind of going against the flow of traffic, so northbound in this area. Hearing things about enforcement, and then some worries about increased conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists. Moving into the next section, design proposal. This is a photo of the plaza block between 39th and 40th. And so this is the proposal for the corridor. As Jessica mentioned, we're kind of looking to phase this out over 2 years. So there are 3 diagrams. One is showing the existing conditions, which are 2 plaza blocks, one in Herald Square between 34th and 35th, and another one between 39th and 40th, a shared street between 38th and 39th, and then the rest of the corridor is kind of like a slow block typology where we just have kind of that pedestrian or plaza space attached to just the east curb. In 2025, highlighting the 2 blocks that we're looking to do this year. So the plaza block adjacent to the existing one between 35th and 36th, and then looking to kind of improve the geometry between 41 and 42 to more of a shared street design. So adding in a bit of chicaning to kind of keep vehicles slow, and then also adding some additional materials that images that were shown at the beginning that Jessica went through, where we have like an additional kind of brown epoxy gravel that's added to the travel lane. And then in 2026, when the capital project starts between 38th and 40th and kind of changes the alignment of vehicles at the intersection of 38th and Broadway, is when we would look to implement the shared street designs between 36th and 38th, as well as two-way cycling in the plaza block between 35th and 36th. But again, are here today kind of designing everything together and kind of wanting to share the larger vision at once. And so now moving into the renderings for the design. This is Broadway between 35th and 36th, where we're looking to do a plaza block and expand the programmable space adjacent to Herald Square. As Jessica mentioned, they did a holiday market in the open street and are looking to continue doing similar events. So in 2025, we would look to maintain southbound cycling, expand the amount of plaza space that exists on this block, and then also reconfigure the existing city bike station. Currently, that kind of lives where this green paint is. We would look to move that, relocate that somewhere in the vicinity. And then in 2026, once 36 to 38 begins, we would convert this block to two-way cycling. And so what that would look like, what we'd implement this year would kind of feel like an extra wide bike lane. And that's because next year we would add kind of a yellow center line down the middle and make it two-way.
Sorry, jumping in super quick, just to add to that, that width is also necessary because that is also the FDNY access path.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Moving to 36th to 37th Street. This is where we're looking at more of a shared street design, and this would not be this year, this would be 2026. Kind of this lighter tan color is noting like the pedestrian plaza space. That's kind of the existing material that kind of lives along the east curb right now. The darker brown is where we would add another epoxy gravel that has like a different tint to it, similar to what's existing on the 38 to 39 shared street block. And so with this design, looking to kind of expand pedestrian circulation as well as public space, but also kind of formalize two-way cycling and kind of slow things down a little bit with kind of the chicaning or like swerving movement. And so for southbound cyclists, they would move in a shared lane with vehicles. And again, there's only about 1 or 2 vehicles per minute that we're seeing here. And then northbound cyclists would kind of travel alongside next to them at the entrances and exits to the block. What we've done in the southern portions of Broadway is added a bit of green paint just to help guide them from one side of the intersection to the other, and also alert vehicles that there are bikes kind of coming and going through this intersection. And then also for this block, again, still like working through design, still hearing from stakeholders, looking to maintain a little bit of curb access, and then also through conversations with Garment District stakeholders, like Gotham Hall, hearing a need for additional pickup and drop-off space, especially when there are events and they're seeing a lot of for hire vehicles kind of in the area, picking up, dropping off quickly. And then also for this block, there's an existing city bike station, which right now is kind of currently in front of Gotham Hall's entrance. We would look to relocate that to one of the other pen spaces, plaza spaces that we're creating on the block. Moving north another block between 37th and 38th. This is very similar to the previous block, kind of realigning the vehicle and bike travel paths to align with the capital project, which kind of ends at 38th. So it's a similar design of kind of creating 2 larger public spaces that kind of serve both as extra space for the sidewalk, but also create a bit of room for programming or tables and chairs. But similarly, southbound vehicles travel with the flow of traffic, and then northbound vehicles travel alongside them, kind of in a dashed but still demarcated line, and having the green paint at both intersections. And then similarly maintaining a little bit of curb access on this block as well. Skipping over 38 to 40, because you've heard about that recently, and jumping to 41st to 42nd. Also looking to do a shared street design here. So kind of building on to a little bit to the existing plaza space that is along the east curb, but also adding a little bit more on the west side. This block will just be southbound cycling, so it will be vehicles and cyclists traveling together for the block. And then maintaining a bit of curb space for pickup and drop off. And then this block also has a city bike station that we won't be relocating. It will be able to maintain its current position. And then moving to operations, this is a photo of the intersection of Broadway and 36th Street looking north. Taking a look at curb management. Right now, the existing regs just called out on the blocks that we're working on. So there's two diagrams, an existing and a proposed, highlighting the curb regulations between 35th and 38th and 41 and 42. Right now, the regulations are 3-hour commercial metered parking during the day, and then it transitions to 2-hour metered parking in the evening. With a little bit of no standing any time between the 41st and 42nd. What we're looking to do is to maintain those existing regulations where we're maintaining curb access, and then based on feedback from specific stakeholders between 41 and 42, and then between 36th and 37th, potentially looking to add no standing any time, which would facilitate just like pickup and drop off and quick loading events. But I think as with the 36 to 38 blocks, this is still a little bit in flux as we continue to have conversations with stakeholders. And then the last thing is timeline. We kind of started this kickoff after the holiday market meeting with the bids, which include 34th Street Partnership, Garment District Alliance, and Times Square Alignment Alliance, and have been meeting with some of their stakeholders throughout the course of winter and spring. We did some on-street outreach in the survey last week and are here with you all today. Thank you. It's been a long meeting. And then looking again to implement 2 blocks this year, the plaza between 35th and 36th, and the shared street between 41st and 42nd. And then in 2026, once capital construction starts, the 2 other shared street blocks between 36th and 38th, and then just adding that yellow center line to the bike lane between 35 and 36. And that is the end of the presentation. If there are any questions, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this is one of the most important projects in all of New York City. So thank you. And this is long-term. And if we can remain future focused in our thinking, it'll be tremendous. I'm so pleased that Office of Public Realm is involved, because almost every single city agency and department will have to be involved. Certainly all the bids, all the committees on this board. So thank you so much. Residential convergence is coming to Midtown Manhattan. We need open space, we need green space, we need program space, clean air and light. So much can happen here. I'm so thankful for this, but it's going to require a lot of careful thinking and discussion. So one of the first things is in our vocabulary. We really have to solve what we're calling cycling, because the vast majority of what we're referring still to as cycling are no longer human-powered bikes. They're e-bikes of some determination or another. They're motorcycles, and they can go very fast, and they can be rather dangerous. So we really got to get the bike lane corridor right. And right now, they're really not working. Many pedestrians. I'm a senior, and people who are older, and a lot of people who are younger, and people with, disability of whatever kind, people with packages, whatever, are very concerned, I think, my daily participation, by danger from what we're still calling cycles. And we really have to change that vocabulary and be clear and get much better data on, how many of these are actually human powered and not. So I just want to say that. But I mean, there's just so much possibility here, so much that we can do. So thank you so much, and let me turn it over to the next member.
Are we on questions? Because I didn't hear a single question in that 3 minutes.
Okay, Nancy.
My question is, why did you do public outreach, not during rush hour? Which is when the street is used the most and most crowded, and we have more cyclists moving more quickly through the area. 12 to 4:30 is probably a much lighter time, so I'm puzzled by that. Can you explain why you selected that time frame for the public outreach?
Yeah, so we chose that time. So we started at noon so that we could get the sort of lunch rush in Garment, and then we moved down to Herald Square to get the commuters. And we left a little bit early because we weren't getting as many respondents as we had hoped. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of people walking past us and not a lot of people wanting to talk to us.
So I have a question, and thank you to Samir for pointing out there should be questions. So will you change your vocabulary so that we can have a clear understanding that there's a significant difference between human-powered cycles and these motor bikes? And get us data on that and really get a really strong handle on that, because we have so much opportunity here in creating a beautiful pedestrian-friendly, safe space.
Yeah, I mean, we can work with our cycling and micromobility team and come back to you with some more statistics about who is using the space and how. When we take volumes, you are right, we don't necessarily sort of separate out the like micromobility from the cyclists. So yes, we can work with you, and we can work with Colleen to coordinate that meeting.
Okay.
I noticed one of the design features you're showing are a lot of flexible delineators. And I'm wondering why you think that flexible delineators are protection for pedestrians. My experience has been that they are not, and instead they're tripping hazards, because I see many trucks and cars aiming for them, parking on top of them, and then them being brought to the ground, and then they become tripping hazards. And I know at least 7 people who have had trips and falls falling over these flexible delineators.
So the edge objects that are shown in the drawing are planters and granite blocks. And then along the street facing edge, we will have flexible delineators. Planters and granite blocks are not reflective, so we need that reflectivity for nighttime drivers. So they are sort of one piece of like the edge protection puzzle. But they work.
They provide very little protection.
And I can redefine my question further if I may, David.
That's okay. Let me let's move on. Can I Jessica, one of the questions I had was when we were in the earlier phases of these projects, particularly down by Flatiron, there seemed to be kind of a wider range of experimentation and approaches from block to block. I know we had some feedback that pedestrians sometimes felt a little disoriented because as they would move through that Flatiron corridor, the design language was kind of changing, and where were they protected and where weren't they protected? And it seems in these cases though that vocabulary has started to kind of narrow down a little bit more. Maybe if you can talk to us, and I guess what I'm thinking about here is, 38th to 40th is a capital project that's permanent installation. So how do you see, these sections as they kind of roll up into the capital program? Do you see the design language sort of becoming narrower and more consistent through this? How do you see this developing over time?
What a good question. So I think, we have sort of landed on a design language that is like based on the sort of experimentation that we have been doing over the years. And as I said at the very beginning, we have been really been given the gift of time on Broadway, right? The ability to start in 2008 and come back multiple times to the same location on the corridor, and then have that inform the capital project. I would say, you know, with in-house materials, so maybe Melina, do you want to pull up the capital rendering super quick? So I think there are like a couple of differences, right? Because with the capital project, you know, we're able to fully raise the street, we're able to add things like bollards and raised planters, right? So the toolkit is a little bit different. So we are able in the capital project to sort of keep a straighter shared street, but it will still feel shared with vehicles feeling like they're guests in the space. Whereas in the in-house materials, because everything's at the same level, because the way that it reads, we are a little bit more dependent on geometry changes. So the geometry of the chicane helps to both slow traffic, right? It sort of physically limits how quickly people can drive through the space, but also signals that cars are in a different kind of space where pedestrians and cyclists are the priority. Again, you know, these are things that we're sort of like, we've been able to learn. So I think some of the things that you're seeing repeated are that chicane, but also the yellow dashed line and the green paint at the beginning and end of the block to indicate to drivers and to give cyclists a little bit of guidance, as well as some of the other treatments that we're sort of repeating and bringing back from those previous phases.
Yeah, as part of the MSMX rezoning, our land use committee, you know, with input from this committee, is really pushing for funding for the whole corridor, MSMX, you know, 23 to 42, as open space, as a public gathering area. So, you know, it may hopefully accelerate the timeline on some of these things as well. And so some of these things may end up being temporary for a shorter period of time. That's why I asked the question about, you know, do you see your timelines compressing as this design language compresses as well? Because we're hoping that those resources will be available to make this permanent on a faster schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have a capital team that is also actively advocating for those funds and has some pretty pretty exciting design schemes drafted up for whenever we have that funding, we can then share with DDC. But you know, I don't like to count my chickens before they hatch, right? So I think we're sort of here to talk about the interim implementation. And if and when we get capital funding, we will all be very excited and we'll come back.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
I know Mike emailed me saying he didn't know how to raise his hand, but he had a question, so I just want to make sure that he gets the chance. Mike, do you want to say what you want to say?
Thank you very much for reading my email. I have 3 comments or questions or whatever, but I didn't know when I'd get a chance. You can hear me, yes?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Number one, you know, I walk around the streets of the Garment District and the Flatiron District on a daily basis for the last 60 years or more. And I've noticed the change amazing. The one thing that I warn my tourists about, I'm a tour guide and I take people for tours in these areas. The one thing I warn my people about is the bicyclists. And it's really like when I'm crossing in front of 1407 Broadway, which is between 38th and 39th Street. And I say to people, really, the most dangerous thing on this tour is the bicycles. And now we're going to make it two-way. Oy vey is all I have to say. That's an official comment. Oy vey, write that down. When we got to look in 2 directions for traffic, for bicycle traffic, zooming, as Zul has mentioned, very recklessly in my interpretation, something is going to happen there. It's going to happen eventually. Somebody's really going to get hurt, especially with two-way bicycles that are going too fast. Number one. Number two, Gotham Hall, just for your information, has two entrances. There's another entrance, not only on Broadway, but there's one on Sixth Avenue. So when you're looking to make entry easier for Gotham Hall, keep in mind that there is another entrance on Sixth Avenue that can be accessed by people. And the third is, can somebody tell me what the word chicane means? Chicane, definition, chicane?
It's the weaving. So when you look at
And what?
the weaving, so
Weaving?
when you look at the drawing that Melina has up, the darker brown, the vehicle path is sort of two curves. That's what we mean when we say a chicane.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's an S curve.
It is.
Yes. It's the same word as like political chicanery, but positive.
But not.
Very common in
Thank
France
you.
and the Gulf.
Yes.
Yeah, Samir. We have George has his hand up.
On this slide, I guess I want to understand why you didn't paint the whole thing green.
Yeah.
Like I find this to be more confusing.
Yes.
And like when I ride or when I hear people ride where the green disappears in an intersection or in this case in the middle of the road. So why not just paint the whole thing green for that section on the right?
Yes.
So I think based on previous, right, so we painted the whole bike lane, not the contraflow lane, but the sort of with flow lane green between 21st and 23rd. And what we found was that cyclists were not necessarily staying in the green part, and that like we wanted to make it possible for cyclists to be really the sort of pace setters for that shared space. And
just asking why not paint the counterflow, not the with the flow. So I don't know if that applies.
yeah, I mean, I would say same answer. I think we don't want because we want cyclists to be the sort of the pace setters and to be the pace setters for that sort of like traffic flow. We don't want to sort of lock them into one space in the shared space.
And I
Alright,
think
thank you.
it becomes an issue when there's like the dual way cycling, because then both cyclists try to use the green space, which is not what for two.
All right, thank you.
David?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think at this point in time in New York, neither paint nor signage works for anything, whether for pedestrians, vehicles of any kinds, they really don't. Can we start thinking in terms of pedestrian-friendly surfaces versus micro mobility accessible lanes? That's a question. Pedestrian-friendly surfaces versus micro mobility accessible lanes. They have a place, people have a place.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we have sort of a standard set of materials that we are able to use. And that is, you know, markings, epoxy gravel, green paint, and then edge objects like planters and granite blocks. So I think what we are looking to do on these shared streets is like, while we are slowing vehicle traffic with the chicanes, we are giving pedestrians a little bit more of a buffer with edge objects like planters and granite blocks, while the micro mobility and cyclists are in the shared space.
Nancy.
Would it be possible to mount cameras during along some of these proposed areas to actually watch the cyclists and see what they're actually doing, so that we could have a record of that? I don't understand why we in Community Board 5 are constantly talking about protecting pedestrians from cyclists and multiple mobility.
Yeah, I mean,
micro mobility.
Micro mobility vehicles. They're vehicles.
Buffers are one thing, but surfaces are very different. If you have surfaces that are unfriendly to vehicles, to wheels, they're not gonna go there. Otherwise, they're gonna go straight and fast wherever they can. But I'm seeing a lot of raised hands from the public, so I can be quiet.
But that, my question is, can that be monitored with cameras so we can actually see live pictures of what's going on?
I mean, so we can take some time lapse footage and report back.
During rush hours?
Yes, I mean, so when we take counts, we mount cameras. I'm not sure if we have the footage anymore, but we can always mount more cameras.
And high delivery hours.
Okay, we've got a couple of committee members. Do you need to promote George or?
Oh, yeah, let me promote George. George, you should see a thing on your screen saying you're being asked to be promoted to a panelist. If you could just hit yes. Or I think it's the wording is accept invitation or something.
You did it.
Right. All right, George, can you unmute yourself and make your statement? Maybe while we're waiting for George, Libby can go because she has her hand raised as well.
Libby?
I have many questions, but just one on sort of the implementation when this goes into effect closer to the Union Square to Madison Square Park part of this project. During that, the milling of the pavement and then the transition to the slow street. There were a lot of interesting decisions made by drivers driving just straight through like seating areas and pedestrian zones in that sort of transition period before people got used to it. I know it was in the summer, so it was a little bit less dangerous, but it was somewhat astonishing to see some of the interesting traffic choices that were made by drivers. Just things that I just truly alarmingly dangerous. So I was wondering if there was a better plan to make sure that that change, especially in a slightly more crowded area going up north, is sort of planned for. Like I don't remember if I've actually got full video of it, but I think I tried to capture it. It was just exceptionally dangerous.
Yeah, so I think we, our plan is similar, but probably a little bit more. We'll have barrels, the big orange barrels, closing off the street. And I think we'll have to talk to our markings folks to see what makes sense, whether it makes sense to fully close the streets during implementation versus leaving it partially open during implementation, even on the shared streets. I will say for this year's implementation and for this section, we're not looking at any reversals, where I think giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think it was the most confusing on that 18 to 19 block.
Well, did George?
George,
Can you
can you unmute yourself? I asked him to unmute, but he did not accept that either.
Okay, let's move over to the public.
All right, B. Alan Kurtz.
In
You should be
person in
able-
public?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Sorry, wait, just one second. Sorry, B. Alan, we gotta do the in-person in the room first, and then we'll come to you. Sorry about that. All right, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jane Rossman, and I'm here on behalf of the Garment District Alliance to discuss the Broadway Vision Plan for the plaza blocks between 35th and 42nd Streets. As the local business improvement district for the neighborhood, we have been supportive partners of DOT to provide open communication with our property owners, businesses, and tenants on important streetscape improvements through outreach meetings, materials, and events. We are supportive of the city bringing major streetscape improvements to the district. However, these plans must reflect the needs of our community. After listening to comments by our stakeholders and our own internal review, we have some particular concerns about the Broadway Vision proposal. Our first concern, as has been kind of reiterated by everyone, I think, at this table, is the bike lane that weaves through the shared streets. The primary bike use down Broadway is for delivery workers, mostly on e-bikes and sometimes mopeds. This fast-paced transportation does not fit the ideal casual cycling model that is envisioned for Broadway plazas. Already, there is a lack of regard for the green bike lane, so an entirely shared street will turn it into a bike thoroughfare rather than a pedestrian-friendly space. Also, the mix of green and brown surfacing for communicating northbound and southbound bike traffic is somewhat confusing and will be unsafe for pedestrians concerned about crossing the shared street access to the other side. As the GDA has expressed to DOT, the commingling of bicycles with pedestrians who will likely not be anticipating bikes, in a space perceived to be park-like is ill-advised. Another key issue for our plazas is the lack of security. We urge DOT to provide the equivalent of PEP officers to manage the space. Finally, it is critical that these temporary improvements be made along with the commitment and funding for permanent construction. In closing, it is important for the Garment District to have safe, friendly, and truly pedestrian spaces. With no park to center the neighborhood, the Broadway plazas are our most important public space and a necessary amenity. I do want to also take the time to thank DOT for keeping a consistent partnership with us, because you do come to us, speak to the property owners, speak to the community board, talk to us. So we appreciate the opportunity to be able to give you our comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Charles?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Charles and I live in the area, and I'm a blind person. I was just wondering what can be done to improve accessibility of the plazas. I understand there is, and you probably can't comment on this, but I believe I heard through the news that there's some legal lawsuit against plazas not being accessible. I was wondering about last year, I believe at the Transportation Committee, one of your colleagues, he spoke about different treatments and tactile surfaces that are done in other cities and states. I was just wondering if there's something that can be done to, especially with the shared streets, help someone who's blind with a cane to know the different areas and surfaces, and also about installing audio pedestrian signals, especially in those areas where traffic is a lot more slower, because obviously it's hard to hear if vehicles coming in, it's going a lot more slower. So just wondering about improvements like that. I just want to say from my own experience in the area, I mentioned it before, plenty of times before, walking around my home, how unfortunately a few cyclists, especially when we cross the street when we have the light, will cross right in front of us, very, very close. Actually, we have to stop because they're that close. If I was to reach my hand out, I could, actually have them, touch my hand because they're going by. So it's really scary. So definitely more enforcement. I don't know if there could be some sort of, research into how other cities or places enforce cyclists to slow down and all that sort of thing. So yeah, thank you.
All right, should we go online?
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
My name is Laura Palumbo and I represent Empire State Realty Trust. We have 4 buildings in the area from 35th to 39th Street. That represents 2.2 million square feet and 110 tenants and about 10,000 people. Everything that Jane has said, I'm not going to reiterate. We are on the same page with her. We really appreciate the DOT doing the plaza improvements and the public space. We really have concerns, and we've received information from our tenants as well on the bike lanes, and we really would like them to be, we would really like enforcement of how the bike lanes are going to work. Our tenants are concerned about their safety. We've had some incidents with people trying to cross the street at various times of the day. Additionally, we would like to maintain the one vehicle lane between the 35th and 36th Street corridor that's proposed to be removed for the 2-way bike lanes. That's it.
What streets was that?
35th and 36th.
Great. All right,
Thank you.
Now public,
Yeah.
online. B. Allen Kurtz, sorry about that mess up earlier.
No worries. Thank you very much. Actually, my camera isn't on. I apologize. I'm actually at work. We have a literacy and community gala here this evening, and I appreciate them putting onto their plan because of the first meetings that we had with the bid, maintaining curb access and space for pickup and drop off at Gotham Hall. And I'd like to let Michael Kabak know he is incorrect. There is no entrance on 6th Avenue. It is only a service entrance. It's not for guests, just so he is aware. There's a lot of things that have been talked about today. I'd like to address a few of them. One of them is, and I happen to agree with the woman that just spoke, I don't understand the need to alter the block to make it a plaza block between 35th and 36th Street. I believe the stats are skewed from the DOT. They're only looking at vehicles heading down Broadway. What about the vehicles heading east and west on 36th and 37th Street? You're only counting vehicles heading south. If you're creating a situation where you can no longer head west below 37th Street on Broadway, you're forcing everyone to head east on 36th Street, which is a major artery connecting the Lincoln Tunnel to the Midtown Tunnel, which is already crowded. So I don't quite understand that because you don't have any stats on traffic going east and west. You only have stats on traffic going south on Broadway. And I think that's an incorrect look. I think there should be further looks, if you will, on the stats on traffic heading east and west on the corresponding streets of 36th and 37th, and even heading west on 35th Street. And again, as I appreciate the pickup and drop off at Gotham Hall being as part of the plan, it is a motorized bike lane. We experience it on 6th Avenue when it's along the curb on 6th Avenue. I would tell you that it's probably 10% to maybe 20% maximum are pedal bicycles. Everything else seems to be motorized. And if anybody wants cameras, I'm happy to share. I have typically about 3 to 4 weeks reserved. The police come to me all the time to look at my cameras because my cameras are better than their cameras on the outside of the building. So I do have footage of bikes, i.e. motorized bikes going both ways on both Broadway and 6th Avenue in that area. And that sort of, it's hazardous, as we all know. You have to look left, right, left, because they're not always obeying the laws, if you will. That's really it. We're an event space. We're not a restaurant. We're not a bar. We're really good citizens. The bid asks us, can you run power for us to do the lights on the streets as part of our design? We always say yes. We're really good neighbors. And it's really, sometimes I look at this and I understand and I agree. If this was a pedestrian plaza, I get that. I really do. But the bikes aren't the pedal bikes. This is not Amsterdam. Everything's motorized here. And it does create a lot of hazardous conditions, and nothing's ever enforced. And when you have the seating plazas, that's wonderful. But who's sitting in those seating plazas all day long? If it's people coming for lunch from work, great, that's wonderful. Love to have it. But just like mentioned before, having people police the areas, not having people loitering, having people clean up after themselves, the garbage that remains behind. Those are all things that are part of the plan. And I don't hear any of those things being discussed as part of the plan. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So we have 8 other speakers. If everybody could try and keep their comments concise and avoid repeating anything that has already been said.
All right, Damu, you should be able to
Yes.
unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. I'm Damu Radeshwar, architect, urban planner. We are a small group of architects, planners, along with the local area resident and IT person, Andrew Hyatt, who may be also there. We've been studying Broadway Linear Park from Columbus Circle down to Union Square. We've been doing this thing in a humble way for last 2 years or and a little longer. And we've been thinking about how do we bring our comments together to DOT. Of course, we have been sharing with Community Board 5 several times. Most recently, we met with Libby, Christopher, and Paul, and we've been giving them in writing and also small presentations that we've been preparing. The project this size, so much importance. I'm just wondering, why not DOT create a workshop where the public can also come together and share with DOT the ideas that we've been kind of generating over the time. If it's not a workshop, at least then maybe CB5 can arrange a meeting between our Broadway Linear Park small group of people who are, as I said, have been working for more than 2 years on this thing. Our ideas, we are very happy to, of course, see all the wonderful information that DOT is sharing with us. But at the same time, we've been thinking about car-free Broadway. Looking at the images today, there are cars in the shared streets only like 2 blocks long. Does it really help to do that? And also some places, as we heard today, there's only a 1 car per minute passing by. And while that's happening, is it really important that we give the cars all entire Broadway? Of course, we can still have emergency vehicles or special occasion vehicles to serve certain special functions. They could be passing through, but they are not going to be passing through on a regular level, which means that people should have the entire Broadway open to them. And of course, we also talked about Broadway in 5 acts, which is 5 plazas, which have all kind of different programming based on the communities around there, based on the business improvement districts around there. And then the blocks in between, they kind of stitch together the entire length of Broadway, as I said, from Union Square to Columbus Circle. We've been thinking about holistic planning, not a few blocks at a time. And since we've been doing that, we really would like to get an opportunity with the CB5 to meet with DOT and any other agencies who can give us a little time to share our ideas with them. And the same thing, of course, maybe there's a workshop, not just a survey of the public, but maybe there's a workshop where some people like us are invited to the workshop, a half-a-day workshop or whatever can happen. I think that's very important because we've been thinking about from the point of view of the safety of the pedestrians. Even on an open street day, I walk from 36th Street down to Madison Park, and it was very scary. The open street day did not have car traffic, but they had the bicycles there, which means, as we said, you have to look to the right and you look to the left. And as the gentleman right before me said that there are more motorized cyclists and and much less number of the cyclists who actually use the pedal biking.
I'm sorry, Tom, we've got to move on. I think, we have spoken to you guys. I think we'd be happy to try and set up a session with DOT. So we'll take that on and see if we can coordinate something.
Greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, Chris Sanders.
Hello. Okay, so all I wanted to say here is thanks for presenting the plan, DOT. Thank you, Community Board, for letting me speak about it. I would like to discuss. So I was thinking you guys wanted to have people keep talking about the cyclists going too fast, all that. I was wondering if DOT could add rumble strips or rumble, some type of rumbling strips. So, even for cars too, so that way people can feel that they're not supposed to go fast and it'll slow them down. And then, because there's not that much separation, I guess that's my comment, but otherwise I like this plan. I think it's great. I think it's a brilliant opportunity. I'm kind of disappointed that it's taking so long to do so little, but yeah, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Jim Wright.
Hi, thanks for calling on me again. I'll try to keep it very brief here. This is a complex project encompassing a lot of different conditions, even within this 8-block area between 34th and 42nd. So I really do support and reiterate the idea of a community workshop. I recall probably in 2019, DOT convened a workshop on the capital program around 25th Street on Broadway. And that was at the Porcelona showroom. There's a large space dedicated to a number of tables with design drawings, an opportunity for input from the community, and the design team was there. And so it was really a good sharing experience. So I would really recommend to CB5 that you promote this idea, and DOT, I hope you're open to this. These kind of sessions are great as information sharing, but it's not where we can really get into details. So that's one point. Two, I'm totally supportive of the pedestrian and bike transition that's happening on Broadway. Obviously, there's a lot of other issues, emergency egress, loading and unloading. There's ADA issues. There's freight deliveries. So that all has to be taken into account. In terms of the temporary designs that are being proposed today, two things. One, I would really use your design model that you're developing between 38th and 40th as a standard to look at the temporary improvements. I've commented on this at a number of presentations from DOT, but I feel like the chicane idea is really not a very good model. It doesn't use the public space very well. You end up with a lot of sort of discontinuous so-called plaza spaces that aren't very well used. As has been noted earlier today, this evening, there's a lot of confusion by not only the drivers and the pedestrians, but also the bike riders. And I think all of that confusion creates more of the unsafe conditions that people are rightly commenting on. The bike lanes really do need to take into account both what's been called the casual bike rider, but also the commercial uses, and that's a continuing increasing use on that on any bike lane, and it really has to be designed into it. And the fact that it's perceived as unsafe, I think, is really telling us that they're not being designed correctly at this point. I'll just make one final comment. On the shared streets below 23rd Street, I've heard that the rationale for the shared streets with the counterflow bike lane not being separated from the street, but I can tell you as a bike rider, is even though there's not a lot of car traffic, it's really uncomfortable to be riding head on into a vehicle when you're going in the opposite direction, even though that's your direction on your bike lane. And it's particularly unnerving at night when nobody can see the street markings. The gold standard for bike lanes everywhere is protected bike lanes, separated and protected. And I just have to really emphasize that is really a bad design. It shouldn't be replicated. We need two-way bike lanes, but they need to be properly designed. And I'll just leave it at that. I hope DOT takes us up on a real hands-on community workshop. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
John Noble. John, you should be able to speak.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to say I support the vision of the corridor. I use the corridor as a pedestrian, as a bicyclist. Usually the non-electric bike, city bikes, and I can appreciate some of that faster micromobility concerns for the pedestrians that are on that corridor. I share the same concerns on a bike that's not electric, but I think that as one of the fewer corridors that's safe for bicyclists, that I really think that we can come to an agreement about how to use the space with bikes and peds. And I think that the conditions that the DOT has put forth in that block in 17th and 18th Street, where they have really separated the bikes and the pedestrians, I think is a good vision, and we can work toward keeping the pedestrians safe while having bike access and expanding this. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, next up, Ira Gershenhorn.
Hi, my name is Ira Gershenhorn, and like John, I bicycle. I generally love the idea of these pedestrian bike plazas, but everywhere I hear about the fears of pedestrians, and it's real. I'm concerned about the set of items with the with DOT, and how I know cobblestones really suck to ride on and suck to bike on. So are there ADA problems with using cobblestones? And I think somewhere I saw kind of like fakeish cobblestones, and I've never heard about this pedestrian tripping hazard with the delineators, but that sounds very real to me. It's a good thing to know about. I'm actually involved in a shared street, so it's a lot of more flexible delineators. The planters look great. Unfortunately, I assume they're expensive, and they do have markings on them, reflective markings. So I don't understand why you can't have them and not the delineators. I know the blocks tend not to have visibility markings on them, and that's it really. So that's the question to Jessica Kronstein is, can you use cobblestones, or is it an ADA problem? Thank you.
So just very quickly, so this is an in-house project, so we wouldn't be able to install cobblestones with our in-house toolkit. And then there are some ADA concerns with cobblestones and wheelchair users.
All right, next up, sorry. And apologies for mispronouncing your name. Andrew Hyatt.
Yeah, hi. I first of all, I just want to support what Damu said. I'm also a member of the Broadway Linear Park. We've been looking at this corridor for, from a somewhat different perspective. So I'd like to kind of give some specific feedback here. So one of the things that we've heard a lot from people and we can see is that like in the south portions of the Broadway Vision by Union Square with the recent improvements, there's a problem with people that are, you can go north on Broadway for a while until suddenly you can't, and then you can go north again on 23rd Street. And this kind of like switching from two-way to one-way is a real problem because like it's very hard for people to notice it, or if they do notice it, they're not sure what to do about it. So you mentioned that the same thing is going to be happening as you go north through the Garment District, and you'll reach, I think, 41st Street, and it'll just turn into one-way again. My guess is this is not going to work. We're not seeing the same thing working south of there. I support what we've said about the flexible delimiters being a problem. Generally, this looks like a great direction. I'm really happy to see a plaza block. And I guess one thing one question I have is, why isn't it that like when we do these, these projects, why can't we have more plaza blocks? I mean, I suspect the answer is that you know, various buildings need this, you know, need deliveries or something. And I'm kind of wondering if that's also the case from 39th to 40th, sorry, 38th to 39th, which is kind of being redone, but also will have car traffic. And so it's not really like a complete Plaza Brock. So I'm kind of like, why, you know, what is kind of holding this up? And is there anything we could do about that? Like these long-term, is there any like long-term projects to make that area less dependent on this car pickup and drop off?
Sorry. Yeah, so yes, I mean, I think we are maintaining access based on the needs of adjacent buildings and the outreach we have done. I don't know about, sorry about this.
We all feel the same way.
I don't know about working to sort of diminish dependency on vehicles. I think everything gets delivered by truck, so that's sort of the world that we live in now, but we can revisit in the future.
Great. All right, James Michael, you're up next. Let me allow you to talk. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm James Michael Southworth. Some of you may know me, some of you don't, but I'm a resident and I live at 35th and 5th within CB5. And this is a topic I'm sort of kind of very passionate about. And in general, or like a part of this is a specific topic, but Broadway itself is a topic I'm passionate about as well because I spend so much time there. But in general, I applaud this move to expand the public plazas and pedestrian spaces, but the proposed plan's inclusion of a bike lane just doesn't make sense to me as a resident. And I think the proliferation of bike lanes in CB5 is, now that some other things have been taken care of, one of the most critical upcoming issues currently facing the board and the community as a whole. From my perspective, Broadway should serve as a pedestrian sanctuary in the middle of the concrete jungle, not a speedway for cyclists. E-bikes and bikes traveling at excessive speeds create unpredictable hazards for pedestrians who have nowhere to retreat. As NYPD Commissioner Jess Tisch recently rightly pointed out, we're witnessing a fundamental breakdown in street safety order. The proposed solution does not address the core issue, the incompatibility of high-speed cycling and pedestrian movement in dense urban environments. There's simply no way for the two to share space, and we're allowing a minority of our population to more or less ruin the public realm for the rest of us. If we don't have a bike lane, we don't need these bizarre chicane layouts, which cyclists do not adhere to. Every time I am on Broadway, I narrowly avoid being or am actually struck by cyclists who simply ignore traffic signals, weave through crowds, and treat our sidewalks as extensions of their lanes. Cyclists simply do not follow the law. And I want to be clear that this isn't about being anti-bike, it's about being pro-public safety. Now that we have support of the NYPD and the beginnings of enforcement, I would ask the DOT to consider designing spaces that protect pedestrians as well from the beginning, including simply removing bike lanes from areas like Broadway. We have special interest groups like Transportation Alternatives, which blindly advocate for bike lanes, regardless of the neighborhood context, and micromobility vehicles without little care for pedestrian safety. Additionally, and this is something I don't know that has been really pointed out at all, we see issues of significant sort of contamination or occupation happening, especially in like the high 20s near the Ace Hotel. Delivery riders have more or less commandeered these public plazas, whether locking up bikes or loitering for extended times between deliveries, and basically forcing pedestrians to navigate obstacle courses of parked bikes and then speeding cyclists that actually go through the plazas as well. So it isn't us sharing the public space, it's surrendering it to a small part of our community. Finally, these often aren't even just motorized bikes. These are motorized delivery trucks with like a pedal assist thing serving as last mile delivery vehicles that they're massive and more or less the size and weight of small cars, but are carefully designed to get around regulations. From my perspective, Broadway should remain what it always has been, Manhattan's grand pedestrian corridor. Our safety and the character of our neighborhood depend on it. I urge this board to prioritize pedestrian-first solutions for Broadway, wider sidewalks, more crossing time at intersections, and redirecting bike traffic to streets better suited for for separated lanes. On a similar note, I would also like to urge the committee and CB5 to take up the topic of Priscilla's Law, also known as Intro 606, and pass a resolution in support of it. And finally, as one question, I've been unable to locate the open survey on this matter that was referred to earlier in the meeting, and was wondering if that link could be shared either in the chat or in some spoken or whatever format. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to address it.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go to the next person. In the meanwhile, if you can find that link and put it in the chat, that would be much appreciated. Carlo Steinman.
Hi, I'm Carlos Steinman from the Times Square Alliance. Just wanted to say that we are fully supportive of DOT's plan for 4142, the block there, and really have had a great experience collaborating with them on this, and are looking forward to having an even better block in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's everyone.
That's it. Okay, so we'll go to the business session. You know, I think our goal on these has been to kind of collect public comment. So we have, you know, in the earlier versions of 34th Street resolution, where we basically expressed support for it, but then presented the arguments that the public made, you know, during the rest of the meeting. And here, certainly the idea of having some sort of workshop to dig into this a little bit deeper, that was mentioned. I'm specific requests that people had. The question of re-examining the plaza block from 35th to 36th, whether that needed to be closed to traffic. What else? What else was raised?
Flexible delineators being tripping hazards. What else was raised? I mean, there was someone who asked about the opposite of re-examining the plaza block or creating plaza block and saying that we should not close the street to traffic.
Right.
If we wanted to mention that.
The poor markings of not knowing where
Poor markings.
which bike lane does which and where, and
Yeah.
so it's green and then it just goes
Yep.
around, and what does that mean?
Yeah, and there was one comment about doing like a two-way bike lane with protection fully separated from vehicles and not having bikes go into oncoming traffic.
Someone on a bike riding headlong into car headlights, not knowing
Yeah.
what was happening at the end of that, where the bike and the car meet.
Yep. Probably not a good outcome.
Transition from two-way to one-way, is that weird?
I guess it's the difficulty in having a chicane plan versus a straight line.
That's everything.
I would add on that, paint, signage, like traffic lights, they are serving no purpose whatsoever. These motorbikes go as straight and fast as they possibly can. Surfaces are very, very important. Cobblestones don't work, not a good idea, but there are pedestrian-friendly surfaces, and if we can totally separate that. So, I mean, the problem is the materials that are available to them at this point. So we really have to have other materials. But one of the things that's happening in Flatiron Nomad is that they're really gonna push further planters. So we can get that kind of separation that does include greenery. But it's really significant that we have, you know, fully accessible lanes that are entirely separated from pedestrian-friendly surfaces.
Right. I'm not making a motion this time because I don't want to write the resolution. Someone else has to make the motion. There's only.
What are we trying
few
to
other-
do with the resolution?
Yeah, I guess you were out of the room. I mean, you know, what we've done, like on the original 34th Street busway and the 42nd Street busway was to present, you know, essentially to support it, but to present the arguments that were made by the public and members of the committee, you know, during the discussion. So it's not, yes, it's approved, period. It's, whether in the whereas clauses or, if it's appropriate in the resolve, that there were concerns raised that should be addressed. So.
Well, Will, I would like to go with this, and I mentioned this to you earlier, and I wanted to go to Brad with it, but I want to talk to Christopher, because Christopher and I specifically been working on Broadway Vision, Broadway.
Right, so what we said was, the idea of some sort of design workshop was mentioned, and so that would be an opportunity for whether it's Broadway Vision or
Right.
the Garment District or whoever wants to come in and share at a more detailed level.
Right. So,
what their ideas are.
so the sentence that I want to complete is that I think that we need to go to a task force. Because it's going to involve every single committee on this board, just as it's going to involve every single city agency and department. So I'd like to see a task force with people from each of our committees. This is a huge, long-term, capital intensive.
That is a brand issue, not a resolution.
Yeah.
So.
That's where I would go with the resolution is let's get a task force going. There's so much to learn and do here.
I do just want to note it's 9 and we still have one more item.
Yeah.
Yeah, motion to approve resolution, subject to that, I could write it and.
Thank you.
All right, Mohit,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Samir is a yes, Tiffany, Tiffany is still, Tiffany, I'll come back to you. David,
Yes.
Zool,
Not quite sure what the resolution is, but yes.
and then Joel left. Tiffany, are you still here?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes.
All right, great. All right. We don't have quorum anymore, so this will be the whole exact thing, but we'll get the. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, yeah.
Okay, 34th Street.
So yes, 34th Street, what you all have been waiting for anxiously. So my colleague Rachel is going to be giving that presentation.
Okay, and if there's some way we can move it along.
Yeah, I just before you start, I just will note that our community board alongside CB4 and CB6 wrote a letter supporting a busway, so we can hopefully get through this really quickly.
Yes, let me turn on my video. Hello, everyone. I am working on sharing my screen to the correct screen. I will try to make this as fast as possible. Thank you all for your patience. I am also going to be joined by my MTA colleague, Joe Cheramonte, in this presentation. All right. Let's see. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let's try to get through this nice and fast. All right, so welcome. My name is Rachel, and I'll be talking about 34th Street to you all today. So we'll start out. Okay, we'll start out with our background, move on to our proposal, talk a little bit about traffic analysis, and finish up with our summary and next steps. So to just start, I'll quickly go through our background. So we're looking at 34th Street, obviously super important corridor, lots of critical connections with every single mode of transportation, lots of pedestrian commercial activity, a Vision Zero corridor, slow bus speeds for the 28,000 daily passengers along 34th Street. And of course, this area is really central in the congestion pricing zone. As many of you probably know, we have existing bus priority on 34th Street. We have existing curbside and offset bus lanes. The offset lanes are in effect 24/7. The curbside lanes only Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk a little bit about bus speeds.
Hi all, it's Joe Cheramonte from New York City Transit. When we launched the M34A SBS in 2011, bus speeds improved right after the launch. but it's still one of the slowest routes, and the current bus lane design is simply not working. Average weekday peak hour bus speeds are only about 5 miles per hour and as low as 3, which is those darker red areas on that graphic above. On an average weekday, roadway congestion causes over 750 hours of passenger delays on the M34 SBS. And this is a comparison to weekday average bus speeds on the 14th Street busway, which are 15% faster than on M34 currently.
You're on mute. Rachel, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Joe. So talking a little bit about our work to date, as we mentioned, the bus lanes that were originally added in 2008 and then upgraded in 2011 with the launch of the M34 Select Bus Service. Some bus bulbs were also added, with work still underway at 8th Avenue on the final one. More recently, this past fall, we did some on-street engagement with pedestrian intercept surveys and merchant surveys. We, of course, also presented our existing conditions presentations to you all earlier this year in January, February. And today we'll be talking about a draft proposal. So just briefly talking about community feedback, we heard about overcrowding on sidewalks, long crossing distance, slow bus speeds, and the need for loading space on the corridor. Of course, as we received the request for 24/7 14th Street style busway, sidewalk widening, and other pedestrian safety elements from you all, and a request for redesign and regulations to facilitate the deliveries that are so vital for 34th Street. So moving on to our proposal, what everyone's here for. So yes, we are proposing a busway between 3rd Avenue and 9th Avenue in both directions, maintaining the existing bus lanes for the rest of the corridor. So that's, east of 3rd Avenue and west of 9th Avenue. Obviously, you all fall directly in the busway extents. We're also proposing some additional pedestrian safety elements as a part of this proposal, and we hope to prioritize curb management and for loading and delivery needs as we go through this.
Can you answer the question that came up about why it's 3rd to 9th, how that decision was made?
Sure. So we weigh a lot of different things when we look at where are our projects going to be. Of course, since this is a bus priority project, bus ridership is super important. Of course, the route does continue further in either direction, but this is really the core of where we see higher ridership. We also, the A branch turns off at 8th Avenue, so of the M34 SBS, many of the express buses are turning on and off the corridor within this core. We also see this is really the heart of the commercial area. Land uses just become a lot different as we get far east and far west along the corridor. So that's really why we focused for this project on 3rd to 9th Avenue. All right, so moving along to what is a busway. So I'm sure many of you are familiar because obviously 14th Street is a nearby example, but on our busways in New York City, we allow buses, trucks, and emergency vehicles and accessorides to travel along the whole corridor. Other vehicles are allowed to turn on to the corridor, but must make the next available and legal turn. So this ensures vehicle access, but also, those forced diversions to help reduce congestion on the corridor. This helps make bus service faster and more dependable because of the reduced congestion, and also allows loading and deliveries and customer access for, the various businesses and land uses on the roadway. So just we'll briefly kind of went over many of the benefits of a busway, you know, prioritizing truck and transit and allowing us to enhance the pedestrian experience. We looked to 14th Street, like I said, as a nearby case study. 14th Street Busway was launched in October of 2019 in conjunction with the M14 AD Select Bus Service launch. There we saw bus speeds increase up to 24%. Crashes decreased by 42%, with minimal travel speed changes on streets around the busway, so where we would expect those diversions. We also found that people felt safer crossing the street, and they felt like bus service was faster and more frequent post-implementation. So now we'll get on to the design, and I'm going to try to run through this really quickly. So this is the 9th Avenue Gateway. I'm not going to focus too much on it because it's outside of your district, but all of this will be available online. I'll just note that at 9th Avenue, all vehicles, so it's our gateway in the eastbound direction, so all vehicles traveling on 34th Street at 9th Avenue will be required to make a right turn at this new right turn bay. With some daylighting to help improve the visibility for those turning vehicles. So here we just have channelization. Now, vehicles will still be able to access the busway in the eastbound direction via a left turn from 9th Avenue onto 34th Street. And in the westbound direction, because of the existing turn restrictions, vehicles will continue straight just as they do today. Continue on to 8th Avenue, you know, where we get a little, you know, into CB5 land. So you can see here at 8th Avenue, because of the existing turn restrictions, vehicles traveling eastbound must continue straight, just as they currently do. Though we are proposing some new expanded pedestrian space here at the southwest corner, you know, for waiting, some additional daylighting, all of that. We do here in the westbound direction have this forced right turn and accommodated by this new right turn bay. So again, those are the these new right turn bays, these required right turns for general traffic are like the real facets of the busway design. So only in the westbound direction, only trucks and buses are allowed to continue through. All other vehicles must make this available right turn here at 8th Avenue. Again, traffic can access the busway via a left or a right turn from 8th Avenue onto 34th Street in either direction. At 7th Avenue, there are currently existing turn restrictions for all of the turns onto and off of the corridor. So that, and we're not proposing changes to that at this moment. So vehicles will continue straight in all directions as they currently do. We are, however, proposing some expanded pedestrian space here at this southeast corner. At Broadway, similarly, because of the existing turn restrictions, vehicles will continue making those same movements that they are already making. So continuing straight, except for the MTA buses who make the right turn. At 5th Avenue, we again have some legal turns available. And so you can see here that in the eastbound direction, cars must make, and you know, vans and stuff like that, must make this available right turn from 34th Street onto 5th Avenue in the eastbound direction. Again, we are adding some additional pedestrian space at the corner to both serve as daylighting, additional space for waiting for pedestrians. We know this is a busy corridor, as the Public Realm Group mentioned earlier. This is a global corridor on their ranking scale as well. So really high pedestrian volumes, and we really want to not only protect pedestrians who may be crossing the street against, but also to help shorten crossing distances. Here again, as with previous blocks, southbound traffic can access the busway via a left or a right turn from 5th Avenue onto 34th Street in either direction. I'll also note while we're here that you'll note there's a lot of bus stops on 34th Street. As a part of this plan, we're not currently proposing any changes to those bus stops, just in case that's a question that comes up. So moving along, again, we'll see a lot of this familiar design. We, in the eastbound direction, because of existing turn restrictions, all traffic will continue straight as it currently does. We are proposing adding some daylighting at both the southwest corner and the northeast corner, again, to improve that visibility. And increase safety for pedestrians. In the westbound direction, because this right turn is legal, we are proposing to add a right turn bay where all traffic except for buses and trucks will be required to turn off of 34th Street onto Madison Avenue. Again, northbound traffic can access the busway via a left or a right turn. So I'll quickly just run through the remaining blocks. Again, this is very, the regulations are consistent, and so it can be a little repetitive trying to go quickly. So at Park Avenue, we have right turns in both directions since it's a north-south street. So new right turn bays, some daylighting at that north east corner. And again, access allowed onto the busway via Park Avenue, north or south, and no changes to those turn bands that are existing. At Lexington, similarly, a right turn bay in the eastbound direction, only buses and trucks will continue straight. In the westbound direction, because of the existing turn restriction, all vehicles will continue straight just as they currently do, with access to 34th Street via Lexington Avenue, either left or right turns. And then we get to our 3rd Avenue gateway. So similarly, we have this new right turn bay in the westbound direction at 3rd Avenue with some new daylighting to help, increase visibility, especially since we are, forcing all of the vehicles to turn here that aren't buses or trucks. In the eastbound direction, traffic will continue straight just as it currently does because there are existing turn restrictions. Again, northbound traffic can access the busway via a left turn from 3rd Avenue onto 34th Street. I'll also note we're proposing a new median island here, just so you all are aware, in concrete to, again, shorten the crossing distance and help protect pedestrians. We are also hoping to upgrade the existing mid-block crossings, some of which fall within your district. So these are all existing crossings, but we're hoping to add some painted pedestrian space that extends beyond the curb to help shorten those distances, because we know it can be quite, a long distance to cross. All right, so I'll briefly talk about enforcement. I know Bailey talked about enforcement a bit earlier, but we have both ACE cameras, and those ACE are the on-bus cameras that the MTA runs, and we also have fixed location cameras that are in effect on 34th Street today. As a part of a busway launch, we would just update for the new regulations. I'm going to briefly touch on traffic analysis now. So we're still working on our traffic analysis. It's ongoing, but just to give you an idea of, we know that this is a really important corridor. And even though we're only looking at changes along 34th Street, we know that they have, because of its unique position in, the heart of Manhattan between two major tunnels, that it has impacts on traffic much larger than just the corridor itself. And so we are using dynamic traffic modeling to explore how our proposal will affect traffic patterns on Manhattan avenues and other crosstown streets between 66th Street and 14th Street. And when we do have those results, we'll be able to provide them to you all. As I said, we're still working on this today. What we have done is looked at some origin destination data to see where drivers are going on 34th Street. I'll quickly go through these. This data uses like things like in-vehicle GPSs and apps like Google Maps or something like that, where you've agreed to give them your location to tell us where our vehicle's going on a given corridor. So through this, we've found that a very, very small percentage of vehicles traveling along 34th Street have a destination on the corridor, only 1%. 28% are going directly north or south of 34th Street. Sorry, was that a question?
No, it's just someone coughing. Please keep
Okay,
going.
sorry. 24% of vehicles traveling on 34th Street are going to other parts of Manhattan, and 47% of vehicles traveling on 34th Street have destinations in other boroughs or beyond the city limits. So this kind of information helps us look at what are other paths that vehicles might take, what are areas we might want to prioritize for making sure that, you know, are there going to be traffic hotspots, all of that. But it really shows us that we know unsurprisingly, those tunnel connections are likely very important for drivers that are currently on 34th Street. So how can we accommodate them on other roads as well? Right, so now I'll move on to our summary and next steps. So our goals for 34th Street are to make bus service faster and more reliable, increase safety, and ensure that we have access to businesses. We know that it's a busy commercial corridor. It's so important. Our proposal is, a 14th Street style busway between 3rd and 9th Avenues. And as we continue to work on this, we hope to synthesize your all's feedback and finalize our traffic analysis which will help inform a final design. So we're currently meeting with, going on to our next steps, we're currently meeting with, community boards. You guys are our first stop for community boards, and we're excited to hear your feedback. We'll of course continue site visits through this spring and summer. We'll also continue working on our traffic analysis and hope to refine our proposal based on, traffic analysis and your feedback. And during the summer, we hope to share a refined plan, all with the goal of implementation in late summer or fall of this year. And thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, I am happy to go back on slides. And yeah, excited to hear from you all.
So, two questions that also came out of the preview that you gave us. So the 1% that are doing business in the corridor, there are a number of areas where you showed us kind of gray vehicles. Is that parking? Is that loading? Is that the 1% that we're accommodating in those areas?
So, so the gray vehicles, this wasn't a great slide. Okay, this one's okay. So yes, the gray vehicles are there to symbolize like what a parked vehicle might be. Obviously, the current curb regulations on 34th Street are very restrictive, and there isn't a lot, there's almost no parking and loading, in a midday period. For something like renderings, I think they can be really helpful for just showing how space can be used. It can be hard to picture like, oh, is that enough space for a vehicle? And so they're really, in this example, they're illustrative of, the more frequent use of, overnight parking and loading for something like a truck on 34th Street. But yeah, versus the, white buses and the colorful vehicles, which would be the moving vehicles on the corridor.
Right. So one of the questions that came up the last time we looked at this was that there was a concern about adequate loading for all the retail businesses, everything that fronts on 34th. So these areas are the areas that would address that primarily.
Yes. So one of the benefits of the busway especially for those blocks where we currently have existing curbside bus lanes, is it gives us the opportunity to open up that curb space to reevaluate how we can best use it on this corridor.
Right. And then, you compare 14th Street. 14th Street allows some local access for people that
Yep.
are living or parking or, for hire vehicles. This seems different. I mean, at least the way you were describing it, it seems to be exclusive. Is that not the case? Is it the same set of rules?
No, it's the same. Sorry, maybe my rushed presentation may have given some confusion, but no. So we do, of course, have blocks like 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue, which have these existing turn restrictions where all vehicles must continue straight, and those will remain in place. But at something like 5th Avenue, if you're traveling south on 5th Avenue, you can make a right turn to go westbound on 34th Street, or you can make a left turn to go eastbound on 34th Street. You would just let's say you're traveling eastbound, you made that left turn right here. You're in this little yellow car and you make this left turn onto 34th Street. At Madison Avenue, because there is a turn restriction, you would continue straight on through. And then when you got to Park Avenue and you were driving through, all of a sudden, now you have an only bus and trucks continue straight regulation. And so you would be required to make this right turn from 34th Street onto Park Avenue. So you still would be able, like if you were trying to access, and since it's up right now, the block between Park and 5th Avenue, or the blocks between Park and 5th Avenue, that's how you would do it. So every block in this busway scenario is accessible by general vehicles, whether that be a personal vehicle, a taxi or ride share, or some other vehicle usage.
Thanks.
What does hardened daylighting mean?
Yep, no problem. So hardened daylighting would be something like if we had channelization, like right here, we could have some vertical elements like vertical delineators, maybe some quick curb, which it also has a vertical element to it, or things like granite blocks or planters, which I'm sure you all are familiar with from, Broadway has many. So something that physically prevents a vehicle from illegally parking or standing in this area that is supposed to be daylit, but doesn't rise so high that it blocks the view. It lessens that daylighting effect.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Thank you, yes.
Public? Yeah, did you? No.
He wants to go.
Okay.
Good for you.
All right, Miriam, if anyone wants to speak on this topic, please raise your hand. Miriam, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I have two specific different points. I wanted to be clear when Rachel said that they're not going to do anything to the change in the bus stops. What about stops that don't have benches, don't have shelters? That's one question I have to ask. The other is I'm announcing to everybody that I am presenting next on Wednesday at the CB4 Transportation Committee. We have already requested from the DOT that 23rd Street have improved bus stops, and Jesse Greenwald walked up and down and identified 6 stops, and it's on the list for the DOT to examine and see what's feasible. We want to go beyond that, and on Wednesday, the members of the community board are going to be each assigned one of the avenues, because 23rd Street is only a sliver of the district. Each person is going to be assigned one of the avenues to go down and to make note of which bus stops need improvement. And this is, I think, a first in the city where we're really trying to make the whole community board district have better bus stops. So come and see how it goes on Wednesday, but I'm going to be presenting, and I was the catalyst to ask for bus stops with shelters and with seating. My question back to Rachel is, you said there'll be no change in bus stops. What about bus stops that don't have seats, don't have shelters? Will they be added as part of the project?
So thank you so much for that question, Miriam. And I apologize if I misspoke. When I said that there won't be changes to bus stops, what I was talking about is we're not looking at bus stop removals or, shifting locations for those stops. We are always looking to see where we can add street furniture, where we can add shelters. Many of these bus stops on 34th Street do have existing street furniture infrastructure, but it is, of course, something that we are taking a second look at as we relook at this corridor.
All right, next up, Paul Crickler.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I'm Paul Crickler. I live on Roosevelt Island. I'm in Midtown the whole time. I get there on the subway, bus, my bicycle. I'm a huge fan of 14th Street. I love how quiet that street is in huge parts of 14th Street, how quick it is to get across town. So that's a miracle as far as I'm concerned, how 14th was transformed. So I think we should now have a miracle on 34th Street. We should do to get the same benefit and the same lovely place to get across town in. And after that, I think we should have a miracle on 42nd Street. That's got to be next on the target list for the DOT. It surely must be a global corridor like Broadway. It's iconic, 42nd Street. So those are the miracles I would love. But what I really would love is to have a miracle on every major cross street up and down Manhattan as far as you can go. 14th, 23rd, 34th, 42nd, 57th, go all the way up and down. Imagine if many people in Manhattan could live within 6 to 8 blocks max of somewhere they could get across town, zip across town in about 15 minutes max. That would transform how tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, visitors and residents, get across this city, across Manhattan. And it would make that whole vibe of the place quieter, gentler, and much nicer place to be. So yes, I'm hugely supportive of this, and I'd love it to be part of that picture of transforming Manhattan this way as well. Thank you.
All righty, next up is Chris Sanders.
Sorry, I had to unmute. In any case, yeah, so I live on 35th and 5th, and I like the idea of a busway on 34th Street. I have to say that the car lane or the 2 car lanes that are there, or they're creating problems, it seems like to me, when I'm walking or when I'm riding my bike. So and also the number one reason I don't use that busway to go to Hudson Yards, instead I choose to walk because it's faster. So having a busway here will make it much more likely that I ride the bus. So that's how I feel about this right now. Is there any, have you all been able to figure out if it's going to increase traffic on 35th Street or 36th Street or 37th Street?
So that's something that we're still working on with our traffic analysis. We as part of that analysis, we will make sure to look at, what are there any hot spots, any congestion that would be created by, these types of diversions, and what can we do in terms of, tweaking signal timing to help traffic flow more easily on those other streets. So yeah, it's something we're of course very much aware of, and we are paying careful attention to as we continue working on our traffic analysis, but we don't have those results right now. So as we complete that analysis, we'll be able to share it with the community.
Okay, great. I still support it. I just wanted to, bring it up as a concern. That's all.
All right, next up is Judy Kessler.
Hi, I'm Judy Kessler. For those of you who don't know me, I've been working on all the Penn District redevelopments for Vornado, and working very closely with DOT on our $100 million of public realm improvements around the area. And, speeding up the buses on 34th Street is going to truly make this intermodal hub, which services 600,000 people a day, better. And just in terms of our studying in the district and work with DOT and others over the past dozen years, doing this work, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One, the larger area traffic study will be, critical, and we're very glad that DOT is working on that. Curbside space in this area is at a huge premium, and it looks like none of the curbside spaces are really going to be reduced dramatically, but there's no places for taxi stands, Uber and Lyft pickups. MTA and Amtrak are allowed to park anywhere they want to park for the most part, and so they take curb space, and then there's Access-a-Ride. So and then in terms of the sidewalk space, which is so valuable, having vendors come on those sidewalks, while it doesn't affect the bus traffic, it affects people getting off the buses and where they can go. So all I'm suggesting is that there's a holistic look as much as possible, because this area is not 14th Street, and DOT clearly appreciates that, and that there is, a huge amount of pressure on the area beyond, buses and throughput of buses, but great job.
All right, thank you. Before we go to John Noble, just a reminder, if you want to speak, please raise your hand. All right, John Noble.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say that I'm fully supportive of this busway. I've taken the bus along this corridor. I live in CB6, and have been, noticed how slow this bus is, and I appreciate that this is being considered as a busway to increase those bus speeds. It's very, very rare to find a place in Manhattan to get across town quickly, and this would be a great opportunity to expand the single busway we have in Manhattan, and hopefully move to expand it further. Thanks.
Alrighty. That's all the hands.
Okay. Well, I'll take this one. Take one for the team. So, I mean, we were very clearly very supportive of this whenever we passed that last reso. So I don't think anything has changed as we've seen more detail. Yeah.
I worked on that one.
You worked on that one?
Yeah, I think the only two things I'd want to put in the resolution that we may want to call out separately is one, I don't want to tell other community boards what to do, but I think we should have some language that says, like, if the other community boards do want it end to end, river to river, that we fully support them in that endeavor. And then two, I do think it's worth calling out, looking for where it makes sense to have bus shelters and seating and cover for the elements at, as many bus stops as possible on 34th Street.
Okay, and we had called for adequate loading
for, 34th Street businesses, so there wasn't really that much detail on this, on that, so we'll have to address that as well. Anything else that you heard that you wanna call out?
Second. Great, all right,
Okay.
take it to a vote. Mohit,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Tristan,
Yes.
and a yes, Tiffany,
Yes.
great. David?
Yep.
Zoll?
Yes, and before making a motion to adjourn, can we applaud the new board members for joining us on an especially late night edition?
Yeah, we're a little over scheduled today, this isn't our usual.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody at DOT and
Thank you
MTA.
so much,
and-
75. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Ready to go.
Look, we can talk about as we, all the broken, vision stuff and linear park. And I've made this comment to you guys when I see them at meetings and stuff, like, it hasn't really progressed, like, I haven't heard anything about meetings that they've had with other groups, there's been no more detail. So it's just this concept that's still out there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Sorry
what are
that
we supposed
one
to do with it?
member of
We
the
can't
public
develop
called out.
it. All we can do is, we can.
I've been there.
I like the idea.